Welcome back to the Pod of Greed.
Welcome back indeed, guys. Happy to have you here for another week on the pod.
The only pod.
The only one on the internet. One's in chat if you're watching the premiere, yeah?
Premier Gang rise up.
We always appreciate you guys. Hopefully you're having a good Thursday morning. This is going to be a fun one. There's a lot of interesting news, but before we get into all of that, I'd like to welcome our special guest for the podcast this week.
What?
The Red Eyes Black Dragon.
I was like, what guest? I should know every guest we have.
So this is my Red Eyes Black Dragon figure from First Four Figures. This is the purple, I think, deluxe edition.
I'll let you guys know right now that this is not sponsored. Paul just actually went and bought this expensive thing.
Yeah, this thing, I don't even know how much this costs. You probably don't want to. It's like $300. I pre-ordered this like over a year ago, and it's finally come in. Sorry for you audio listeners. I know you're probably like, what the hell is he talking about? It's my First Four Figures Red Eyes figure. It looks very detailed and amazing. I got the purple edition.
So it looks like how Red Eyes did in the anime versus the card, where it looks mostly black, but in many anime scenes, Red Eyes was purple.
It's kind of similar to Blue Eyes, and where like sometimes they sort of colored it purple, sometimes they kind of sort of colored it more black. Like, you know, Blue Eyes was sometimes more like bluish white, and then other times it's like silvery, especially like in the newer movies like Dark Side of Dimensions, they make it more whitish silver, but yeah, so it's really detailed. It's actually got this light up fire here at the bottom as well. This,
I think that's lava, Paul.
Yeah, it's lava. Yeah, cool, fun, not sponsored. Just thought I would share that with the people. Red Eyes will be joining the conversation today, or at least listening.
I'll say if he joins the conversation, all we're going to hear is roar. I wonder what Red Eyes sounds like. Actually,
he didn't have as much of a defined roar compared to Blue Eyes, I feel like, in the anime.
I mean, I feel like he didn't roar that much. I guess the Red Eyes wasn't summoned that often compared
It
to
really
Blue
wasn't.
Eyes.
Yeah, because like Joey had the Red Eyes, summoned it maybe like twice, and then it got like, he didn't have it really for most of Battle City, and that, you know, so it was the whole thing.
And that Red Eyes traveled around, because that was Rex's Red Eyes.
Yeah, the Red Eyes got around like that single Red Eyes card without a sleeve. You know, like it just
like it's elementary school. Remember how it was like
getting around the playground? Yeah,
a card would go through like 6 hands, a sleeve would never touch it.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. Kai was throwing Blue Eyes to like knock remotes out of Rare Hunter's hands, and he didn't seem to have a problem with that.
There were only 3 Blue Eyes in the entire world, and he was chucking them.
It's kind of crazy. He ripped the 4th one, but he has no problem like throwing one of his own at like. Come on. Like at a pier? What if it fell into the water?
Maybe they didn't have a rule about damaged cards. Like, hey, you can just use them. I mean, Joey did jump into the ocean to try and save
Exodia pieces or whatever.
Exodia pieces.
That was always funny to me because it was like, even if you got those fucking Exodia pieces, they're going to be soaking wet. Like, how are you going to use them?
Completely useless.
Yeah. Anywho, hopefully you guys are having a good week. There's not actually a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh news this week, but there is a lot of like other stuff. So I guess to quickly get into the Yu-Gi-Oh news, Team YCS Las Vegas 2025 happened this past weekend.
And you only know that if you pay attention to social media because it wasn't streamed.
Yeah, the winning team was Jesse Cotton, Dominic Couch, and Michael Albanese. So, you know, it was a 3v3 Team YCS. They were all playing variants of Ryzeal. I think Jesse just had like Fiendsmith Ryzeal. The other two were playing like a sort of Shark Ryzeal variant. Although Shark is maybe a bit of a misnomer. Apparently there were only like 2 Shark cards in
these.
He
said there were 2 Shark cards in the deck, which made it a new variant.
Yeah, so Ryzeal can combine with anything. But yeah, that was cool. The event was not live streamed. I know we sort of mentioned that a bit last week, but I'm baffled by that.
Like it's Vegas. It's not like it's somewhere in the middle of nowhere, you know, but it's Vegas, one of the most streamed cities in America, and they did not have a live stream. I mean, maybe they intended to, and this things didn't work out. I don't know.
I suppose maybe it's just like the price of internet at the venue is really
Vegas
high
is not a cheap city.
But it does suck because, in my opinion, I've always felt like these YCS events are basically like just supposed to be marketing for the game. Like, you know, they're sort of. It's weird that it isn't streamed because you would think like this is sort of what's supposed to be the aspirational thing that you kind of look to do. Like, you know, you spend a lot of money on these packs and these cards and like you want to go on the highest stage and so on and so forth. But
I mean, YCS is I think are supposed to be like the payoff for being a Yu-Gi-Oh player, right? You buy your expensive cardboards, you go to locals, you get good, and then you go to a YCS and scrub out. Like that's the entire experience. And a part of that is, maybe getting in a feature match, getting some notoriety attached to your name. I mean, thankfully, Jesse Cotton won, so we already know about him, and I don't think there's any extra notoriety at this point for him. But, it'll be a shame if this was like a first-time YCS winner situation, and, well, no one got to see or know about it.
Yeah, well, it happened. It was cool. It's interesting, too, because, the 3v3 YCS format has taken off a lot in popularity. Like, people just kind of like the idea of, being with their friends and, doing the Yu-Gi-Oh! You were mentioning yesterday about how you think that they should like change the deck building rule for it.
Oh yeah, that's my biggest like sticking point with the Team YCS format. So just about every card game that I can think of has adopted the 3v3 format, which I feel pretty certain in saying that Konami kind of pioneered the 3v3 in this trading card game space, but now every card game does it. But you know what they all do that for some reason our Team YCSs don't do? They limit deck building options. Even the Master Duel version of Team YCSs, they limit deck building. You can't just all have basically the same deck, ignoring the ban list and just everyone just play the best possible cards at all times. I like limiting the deck list. I like there having to be like a lot of strategy in what decks you pick, because in this Team YCS, it made perfect sense to just go ahead and bring Yugioh.
Yeah, I think that would make for much better variety. I was looking at the top cut, just have it pulled up here, and it was like, of these top, because I guess there were like 24 top decks. It was like 8 teams and something like that. 8 teams, 3 people each. I guess it was like a top 16. Either way, 32 Yugioh decks, 6 Malice decks, 4 Blue Eyes, 4 Mermail, 1 Voiceless Voice, and 1 Fiendsmith. Actually, a pure Fiendsmith. That sounds exciting.
It could have been so interesting if every team was limited to just 1 Yugioh deck. And maybe it would have looked more even between like Yugioh and Malice. And then the third deck would have been
people would have to get kind of creative with what that third deck is.
It could have been so interesting.
You're not allowed to just be like, okay, you can't just play Yugioh and Malice. And even if you're playing like a Fiendsmith engine in one, then you no longer can. Like, I don't know. I think there'd be more variety in deck building with that.
Now, of course, we're not going to pretend like, all these guys just showed up with the same exact deck list and competed in the most brain dead manner possible. No, there were many innovative like Yugioh builds at this YCS. People were doing different things with their combos, with their tech choices.
Yeah, so like the Shark Yugioh thing, that seemed kind of neat. But at the end of the day, though, it's like Yugioh.
It would have been way more interesting to me if if they had more deck variety. But look, I wasn't playing, so this is not really.
I just say this is the words of two like casual scrubs on a podcast or whatever. But like,
I can barely get through the combos in my own deck.
Yeah, so grain of salt. I think they could be kind of cool. Anyway, other Yu-Gi-Oh news is actually kind of like sparse, but basically there are a couple of new V-Jump cards shown that were used by some Zexal characters in the Zexal manga. Not the anime, because I wasn't really familiar with who like Luna from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal was, or
me neither.
Any of that stuff. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know who these people are. But yeah, Moon Magician and Moon Gardener used by Luna and Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. And then also, the third manga card is this card used by Evolutor, which is Starship Adjust Plane.
I got nothing.
So yeah, these are just sort of Xyz support cards, but I do not know anything about Zexal's manga. So I can't really comment on them beyond that.
I do think it's funny how when the manga was going around and the only way to get Utopia the Lightning was as a promo in the manga, everybody had their Utopias. But how many people have you met that's read that manga?
Not many, yeah. I feel like it's interesting, like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Because like I remember with like the GX manga, the characters use entirely different decks.
Yeah,
like
they do.
Bastion's got like the weird kind of like zombie deck instead of like
Bastion had
H2O.
zombies. Jaden still played heroes, but they were completely different heroes than the ones he used in the anime.
Didn't Chaz have a different deck?
Chaz had Light and Darkness Dragon.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting thing, like that the mangas are so different. Like
I guess it's to make it more interesting. It might be, you might consider it boring to essentially see the same story twice. The major one for me was the Arc 5 manga. That's the one that I read all the way through. And I really appreciated how different it was from Arc 5 because Arc 5 was a mess.
Yeah, so some other little quick announcements too. Battles of Legend and Monster Mayhem, we got reveals of all 10 of the different chibi variant art cards.
I haven't seen all of them.
So, yeah, you kind of get a better look at just...
So, Blue Eyes.
Like I saw Honest is in there.
Gearfried. The Dark Paladin, Junk Warrior, Gores. Yeah. I do that. Skull Servant, Galaxy Eyes, hate him. All three of the Ojama or Ojama. I like the Honest. That's cool. And Neos.
Yeah, so these are cute and cool and fun. You'll be able to pull them.
I hope they're not only available at the highest rarity and in low pull rates.
I saw some people kind of upset about these, actually. Like, people are like, this is lazy, like you're just reusing art from...
I mean, they are... Those are like reused artworks, but we've never had them on a card before. So.
I think it's pretty harmless. I think it's cute. Like, if you're a collector of like just cool looking Yu-Gi-Oh cards, this is like another sort of thing to have.
And look, guys, this is one of those like kind of hostage blackmail scenarios. We have to be happy about this. Because if we send any signals to the big corporation that we don't like alternative artworks on our cards, they'll just stop doing them.
Yeah. So that's kind of neat. Just more Battles of Legend and Monster Mayhem. Also some reveals for Super Quant cards in Duelist Advance.
Let's go!
Yeah, the Super Quant, a.k.a. the Super Sentai archetype.
I still got my Super Quants in my deck box.
Yeah, these are cool. They're Super Quantal Fairy Zeton. And the one that everybody's talking about is Super Quantal Black Lair, who everybody says is just Kashtira Fenrir with a gun.
That's unfair. While yes, I do see...
That's 100% Kashtira Fenrir.
Okay. Yes, they look similar, but that's because Kashtira Fenrir has a Sentai look already.
He sort of does, but the thing is, too, it's even got the same stats as him. 2400 attack, 2400 defense. And it's level 7.
Okay.
They definitely knew.
But why? Why?
Yeah, I don't know why.
It doesn't make any sense.
I think it's just one of those things where like Yu-Gi-Oh just randomly does like references and call-outs to its own monsters. Just randomly.
A small thing that I like is how it keeps thematic synergy with the rest of dis-synergy with the rest of the Super Quantals. You know, the Super Quantals don't share types.
Yeah,
Green Layer was a spellcaster. Blue Layer was a psychic. Red Layer, I believe, was a warrior or a beast warrior. I can't remember.
I think it was a warrior.
I think it was just a warrior. I completely forget what White Layer was, but Black Layer is a zombie. And so they don't have typo synergy, and so you're forced to play the archetype as intended, or at least you were. With the new cards, I feel like you can do some kind of nuts things.
I don't have the exact like story for this or the deck list, but an Odeon deck actually topped a regional last weekend.
I saw a tweet about that, and I went to save it, and I accidentally refreshed, and it was gone.
Yeah, that's how Twitter works. If I can find it, I'll put it up on the screen. But yeah, I know a lot of people were sort of initially disappointed by the Odeon support cards. They sort of felt like there wasn't anything to them, not enough meat on their bones. But somebody was able to top or win or something at a I
mean, even topping a regional with a deck people didn't respect is still an accomplishment one way or another.
Now, the caveat that some people have been pointing out is this is like a 60-person regional, which I guess by regional standards is rather small. And so they sort of are using that to downplay this. Like, oh, anyone could win it, smaller regional.
That's not true. I know many people who can't beat 60 people in the room.
Yeah. So I thought that was still kind of cool. I know I had initially had my doubts about the support, but it's nice to see that it can do well.
Did you see the deck list? Was it was it an Odeon engine with something else on top of it?
It was actually pure. It was a pure Odeon deck. Now, at least as pure as it can be with a bunch of hand traps in it.
Right.
But it wasn't like Odeon, Fiendsmith, Kashtira, Azamina. It was just Odeon. It was This is like 3 of the good cards and some fusions and some hand traps and staples.
I don't have such lofty aspirations for this deck. I don't need it to be the most competitive deck. I don't even need it to be rogue. I just want it to be the best of the anime decks we've gotten in recent years, sans Blue Eyes, because none of them should be Blue Eyes level. But if it's better than Millennium, if it's better than Sarcophagus, and better than Metalmorph, I'm happy.
Yeah, and that's like kind of the Yu-Gi-Oh news for the week. I feel like I haven't seen too much else. You know, some upcoming things like Master Duel's second round Duelist Cup's going to be coming up. I'm going to try to play a little in that, see how I do.
Gotta compete.
I've been having a lot of fun with
Speaking
Master
of
Duel.
compete, I have a small anecdote.
Oh, okay.
Guys, I finally did it. I played at locals.
Woo! Add a whole like audience applause, like clap track.
No, I mean, come on, guys. Like, hear me out. I love Yu-Gi-Oh! But I've been so out of love with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That I really don't play much if it's not for the channel. But that's never stopped me from collecting and building decks. That's never stopped. Well, for some ungodly reason, I decided, you know what? I've been collecting all these White Forest cards, and I really like the aesthetic of this archetype. Let me start learning how to play the deck. And I decided, before even really reading all my cards, to go ahead and hop into a local tournament. I got washed. I got washed bad. It was not a good showing whatsoever. That is not a deck that you can just pilot with absolutely no knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but if it's motivation to learn it.
Yeah, because I got washed so bad. Now, one of the things I've been thinking about the most is I need to go back and do better. I'm not trying to immediately win my next locals with it, but I'm like, okay, I can do a little bit better than what I did. Let me go take some rounds off people. Let me go take some games off people, and then give me 3 weeks. I want to win locals.
Maybe you can.
I want to top locals, and if this spurs me back into modern Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe I'll compete again. Maybe I'll hit up the next regional.
All it takes is a good lore deck, you know?
You know, maybe I'll go to Nats. I may not get an invite to Nats, but I can still show up.
You can show up. Yeah, I've been going to locals actually too the last couple of weeks. 2 different locals in 2 different states actually, but it's been fun. I've actually won both the last 2 locals I went to.
You went back to back.
Very, small local things, but I've been playing Voiceless Voice, really enjoying it. I am going to be at YCS Houston in a couple of weeks.
Houston.
So that should be fun and exciting. A few other people will be there as well. I'll probably just play Voiceless Voice since that's what I play in Master Duel, and I've been kind of playing with it locally, but there are other options too. And it's been fun. Just playing paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Again has reminded me of the joys and like sort of maybe sorrows of physical Yu-Gi-Oh! But
I do have some criticisms.
Okay.
And surprisingly, it has absolutely nothing to do with Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, what are your criticisms?
So I sat down for my first round of the tournament. And the thing is, I am very particular about how I play my card games. I'm not one for loud rooms. And typically that card shop isn't so loud, but that day it was. And so I was not very happy. And I was like, man, maybe I won't finish this tournament because it's just loud in here and I really don't feel like dealing with this. And then I smelled something. I smelled something so foul that while my opponent and I are trying to like play our cards, I'm actively considering just getting up, dropping, and leaving. Smell is such I don't know if it's such a big deal for everybody, but for me, I cannot stay focused on the game if a very foul stench is anywhere near me. And in my very first round, somebody was bent over behind me.
Oh, goodness.
And they put out a smell.
Yeah.
That I swear to God, in the first round, I was going to bounce. And to Yu-Gi-Oh's credit, and to Yu-Gi-Oh players' credit, that wasn't a Yu-Gi-Oh player. That was just someone else at the card shop for a different event. But I almost bounced and did not get to enjoy my first time playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! In a long time. I almost left immediately. I was so sick to my stomach. Thankfully, I had a judge call to distract me from it for a while, but
You survived.
Ooh, it was close.
They're gonna make like shirts. I survived Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals 2025. Yeah, so that's pretty much the Yu-Gi-Oh! For the week. What about other card games, though? I know there's some big headlines around One Piece, so do we want to just jump right into that?
Let's just get into One Piece. Speaking of One Piece, I also played in a One Piece pre-release this past weekend.
Yeah, so the big One Piece news, and you might be able to explain this better than I can. I also had Chris sort of explain it to me a bit more, is that One Piece, we talked about last week that they are going to be synchronizing with Japan. You know, Japan and the West and stuff are all going to be synchronized starting in like 2026. Well, in addition to that, they've introduced a rotation system to the game.
And the dreaded word, the R word.
Yeah, it's a little bit controversial. Some people kind of have differing opinions on it. Can you explain it somewhat-ish?
Probably not better than you because I literally have a surface level understanding.
Okay, here's I'm going to read what I see.
Okay.
Here. This is on, I think, their website, onepiece.gg, which I guess this isn't a One Piece site. It seems like a fan site. But anyway.
Site, popular one.
So, One Piece card game will have sets rotating annually starting in April 2026 as the standard format, with sets rotating out in blocks of 4 and up to 8 being legal in total. This follows the worldwide release in 2026, where all sets will be released at the same time in all regions, which, just side note, I think that makes a lot of sense. Synchronize all the regions, and then that's when the rotation starts. So
makes sense to me.
Yeah, so standard sets. Currently, all sets are legal for standard play in the One Piece card game. So that's like sets 1 through about 11 right now, although I think 11's only in Japan right now. But anyway, yeah, there's like a little number block at the bottom of cards that has like a 1, a 2, a 3 based on like the OP set. And so that kind of tells you, that's an easy way to indicate like what cards are currently legal in whatever block.
I do remember people theorizing that One Piece would implement a system like this because I think Bandai in general, they kind of have this thing for putting extra symbols on their cards that they don't bother explaining.
Yeah, that's what they said. Like people were like, "Oh, now we know what these like little devil fruit symbols are for," because they never explained it before.
Because Digimon cards have the same thing. Like look at this card right here, Paul. It just has this white number right here. Now that the card number is above it. The rarity is next to it. What's that mean?
So you think like maybe Digimon even could be potentially planning on doing the same, just because now we do know that Digimon is also synchronized with. So.
I think to some degree, Bandai has planned all of this in advance. I don't know if synchronization was always on the docket, but I do think rotation was.
Yeah, so a couple of other little extra quick details about this is that cards that are rotated out may still be used in an eternal format where all cards are legal. So effectively they're
like traditional format,
kind of giving you
like or Vanguard's premium format.
Yeah, some unlimited format or whatever you want to call it. And if a card has been rotated out but gets reprinted in a different block, then that card can continue to be used. So it's kind of like, I guess, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Equivalent might be, okay, we've like rotated out the set that MST came in, but it got reprinted in a starter deck last month, so you can still use MST because it is still in current rotation. I don't know if you have to use the specific copy that has like the right number in the corner.
I mean, that would be easiest, at least for
logistically for judges and like kind of discrepancies. It'd be a good way to know, but
this type of a system, I mean, there have been many people who've been calling for rotations in other card games. Yu-Gi-Oh! I didn't actually hear an outcry for it in the One Piece space, but I'm not that in tune with that crowd. I did hear a lot of dissent, though.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people are kind of mixed on this. For various reasons. Some people think that it's just needlessly complex. Like, I don't want to have to keep up with this rotation thing.
I mean, rotation does require you to think a little bit more about your cards than you normally do, right? In Yu-Gi-Oh, we can just bust out any card at any point and throw it in the deck. But if you're in Pokemon, you literally need to know what's in rotation right now. You can't just pick up a card and say, oh, this card will be great in my deck. Slow down, champ.
It's a bit of a mixed bag for me, I think, because I would argue that rotation in some cases can actually better simplify the process of. There's a dog barking outside. Hopefully that's not coming through too badly on the microphones. But
it's a loud dog.
Yeah, I think someone's dog got loose. But yeah, like I think to me that if a rotation system is in place, you could argue that it's like, oh, I have to keep up with this like annoying rotation thing. But it seems like they're making it pretty simple. The number on the bottom of the card kind of is a good first place to start. And other than that, I mean, like, I don't know. I haven't heard anyone saying that that's ever been like a difficulty with Pokemon in other games that have it. So I don't know.
I think it's only rotation is difficult for new entrants and returning players, I think.
Yeah, I guess if you're very new, then that might seem a little bit much.
Because you got to figure out, like, okay, where's my jump in point? It's kind of like, it's like a carousel. You're trying to figure out how do you get in. If you're brand new to it, the rotation can be confusing and a little bit daunting. Not impossible, mind you.
I don't think it's much different than like a ban list, though, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, like, so I know Bandai games don't really do ban lists.
They don't like doing them a lot
often, and they're not usually heavy hand. Like you guys' ban list, you know, just some of the Digimon ones I've seen. There's like usually like maybe like 4 new cards on a ban list, maybe like at most. Sometimes it's less.
We don't hit a lot of cards.
Like they don't really hit many cards in these Bandai games, and so in Yu-Gi-Oh though, like ban lists can be huge, like regularly huge, and we're getting them like every 3-4 months, and so it's sort of like, well, I think it's what and what like. You could say that rotation is difficult to pick up on like how the system works, but I would argue that it's equally difficult if you're like getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! And you have to consult this ban list that's like 80 cards long and some stuff's at 1 and 2 and 3. Like, so it's kind of what and what to me. Like,
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think some people might also be upset with how this will affect their market.
That's a big one too. I've heard about is the idea that older cards,
they don't just retain their value.
They don't get to retain their
just
value.
Because they were good.
Yeah.
And even a collector's piece will have to lose some value because, well, it's not playable anymore.
Yeah, and you know, that's kind of a thing where like I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game. I know I like always bring things back to Yu-Gi-Oh! But it's to make a good point. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game where value is dictated almost entirely on playability. Right? Like you are getting Fiendsmith engravers or Molcharmies or whatever with the express intention of playing them. You know and understand that their value comes from their playability and that value has a shelf life. This card will get reprinted in like 9 months or something and will lose a significant portion of its value if it is not banned outright. Right. And that's just the agreement that we all have about Yu-Gi-Oh! So no one's collecting Molcharmies. No one's collecting Engraver because they like it.
It'll be funny. Someone has a binder of Molcharmy Fuwalos, and they're like, look at my very expensive binder that'll be eternally worth a lot of money.
Cute and stuff. So no.
Now, watch that thing get banned. Your binder's worth $1.
On like the very far other end of the spectrum, you've got something like Pokemon, where price is almost entirely dictated just on like collectability and looks. Like the card's cool, it's rare. It's a neat variation of Charizard.
That market is disturbing.
Or whatever. We see how the scalpers work with that. So like it's two different worlds. I think One Piece, and this is with my like periphery knowledge of the game, so I'm sure One Piece players will be able to better inform me here. But it seems like One Piece kind of sits in between, where playability is a factor in pricing, but also like I know that there's like those wanted poster cards and like a lot of other like alt arts and stuff like that, like full art cards that are worth a lot because they are both playable and good, but also really cool looking.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like is in between. I think by doing a rotation, I guess people are afraid that, well, now that wanted poster Luffy, I'm just throwing something in, I don't really know. The wanted poster Luffy that is no longer playable might lose some perceived value. And so like, you know.
I mean, a lot of people are very invested in their One Piece collection in cards. And so anything that could affect that value negatively, they're going to respond negatively because a lot of those cards are not cheap. And
some people also say it's just like a greedy practice in general because it's like it's kind of keeping you on the treadmill. Like you have to buy these new products.
All right.
Thoughts on that?
Ooh, okay. So, all right, children. We're talking about trading card games, right?
Yeah.
The game where you have to buy booster packs, open the card, trade them around, and play, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we stopped buying the booster packs, we would not have a game, right? If people didn't open up booster packs, we wouldn't have cards going around. No one would build decks. No one would play. You cannot get mad at the trading card game company for wanting you to buy the product. You can get mad at them for everything else, but you can't just start saying that, oh, they're forcing us to buy a product. That's kind of the point. You can get mad at their policies, you can get mad at their tournament structures, their ban lists, but not if they're trying to get you to buy a product. That is the point. Yeah. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care how much you love your old cards. Their goal is to sell the new cards so the game continues.
Yeah, like I think this is a point that's difficult to talk about because I feel like people sometimes get the wrong idea. You need, like, these companies are in the business of selling trading cards and they need to sell their new packs. Releasing new packs keeps the game interesting for you as a player and keeps them in business because they have a new product that you can buy and you get to be like an ongoing consumer and all of this. The idea that you should be able to play your old deck forever, and I've been informed by Chris and others that like there are some old One Piece decks and some old One Piece cards that are like from these very sets like 1 and 2 and stuff that are still played and still powerful. And I think that from a balancing standpoint, it seems like Bandai probably feels that One Piece needs this in order to kind of just stay fresh and like pull people away from those extremely old products. That can be boring for competition, and they want to incentivize you to buy new things. So I don't have a problem with the idea that rotation is pushing you along. I mean, like I think. Sorry,
All I was gonna say is that also helps them keep up with their policy of not having heavy-handed ban lists.
True.
If cards will naturally rotate out, especially older, problematic / badly designed cards. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had to ban so many older cards purely because the game moved forward, those cards stayed the same, and now those cards are exploited.
I was going to add, too, that I think like I would prefer a rotation in the sense that like at least it is kind of a justice is blind sort of approach to ban lists. Mm-hmm. Like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, if we got a ban list tomorrow and they said, okay, we're going to hit like these 2 Fiendsmith cards, we're going to hit these 2 Ryzel cards. We're going to hit Detonator to 1 and X Ryzel to 1. And they also said we're going to hit Malice and we're going to hit like 3 Malice cards. One of their traps, one of their link monsters, and then also we ban Dimension Shifter because that's commonly used in them. Okay, so at that point, you can argue about whether the hits were right or wrong, but someone's going to be like, what? Like they hit Malice harder than they hit Ryzel. That's no fair. Like, it's not even as good and this and that, like they should have hit this in Ryzel and this and that, like all of these kind of arguments about like how it was hit. My deck was hit more than the other deck was because I'm a Ryzel player and I feel this and that. With rotation, it's just everything's in, everything's out, like in, out, in, out. You know what I mean? Like it's indiscriminate. Like it's just, that when this date hits, Malice and Ryzel are both out. And that's just how the way that it goes. So I think that in that way, it's sort of better than having these ban lists where people kind of feel slighted because a deck or something of theirs got hit harder than another deck, all that stuff. So
and I think for the most competitive card game players, this is a good thing. People who really do this, who are about that card game life, they don't want to play the same deck forever and ever and ever just because it's good. They like variety. They like challenges. Rotation ensures that their formats will keep changing. And there does not need to be any extra work done to make sure the formats stay fresh. Now there are competitive card gamers who they specialize. We see that in the Yu-Gi-Oh space. We all know that one guy who's been running one particular deck for so long, and they're actually really good at it. Like There's a synchron. One synchron player who can like take a game off Jesse Cotton any day of the week.
Yeah, because
like,
he knows that one deck really well. That's the thing. Like, I think that those players exist, and like I get where a player like that might feel
that they will be slided.
They're being kind of slide in the situation. But like, I think for overall game health, things like rotations seem pretty good, and you don't end up having. Sorry, one last thing I'm going to add on this.
Okay.
You don't end up having the general design power creep problem that Yu-Gi-Oh has run into.
Yeah.
Where because Yu-Gi-Oh does not rotate cards, they just kind of have to slowly make everything a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. Like,
either they ban everything that came out previously into the ground so it's completely unplayable, or they have to entice you.
They have to entice you with
newer,
stronger, better cards that start to cheat a little bit or like dodge stuff around, And all these weird Band-Aid fix cards everybody kind of talks about where it's like we have to make cards like Dark Roller No More or Droplet or whatever and like make them unreactable because the things they're facing are so strong. It's a whole thing. And so, I think this overall, I'll just say I think that the rotation seems good and I support it, but that is also as a non-One Piece player just looking in from the outside.
It made me think about the fact that, Digimon Con is tonight, but for you guys watching this, it'll be last night. I wonder if they're going to announce rotation for Digimon because we got a ban list just this past weekend, and it was announced, actually, I think at the Bandai event, the Worlds event. Mm-hmm. And the ban list felt lighter than what I expected. But if they announce rotation on top of that, woo, that would change everything.
That's actually a good segue. So when you guys are watching this, Digimon Con will have happened already. So unfortunately, we won't have been able to really fully cover it in this week's Pot of Greed. Don't worry, we will talk about it all next week because I'm sure Alec will have plenty of thoughts. He is local Digimon guru. We might even get Alex on here too because I know you guys play your Digimon.
Right. Guru's a stretch, but I'll take it.
But yeah, so I'll probably, they're supposed to be like showing like a card game simulator that's been teased.
Card game simulator. There will be a new animation, like promotional video.
There's that Digimon Elysian
There's some new title that's running around. We noticed they're going to show more of the Digimon game that's releasing later this year.
Yeah, so there's definitely going to be a lot. It's kind of funny. I actually just an offhanded thought was like, should we like push this to like a Friday podcast? Because it feels like so often we are like having to either like push our episodes to Friday because like an announcement will be coming out, or just because like whenever there's like gaming little showcases and news, it's like it always lands on like these inconvenient times.
Yeah, but I feel like the moment we change the podcast day, all of a sudden the events are all going to start happening on Friday.
Yeah. For context, guys, we record these on basically like Wednesday afternoons. And then like, I just overnight edit it and like publish it on Thursday morning. So the turnaround time is pretty fast and that's not really a problem, but like this is a thought. Anyway, I wouldn't be surprised if Digimon does the same thing. It sounds like they also have that thing in the corner you were talking about.
They got those numbers on them.
Numbers in the corner. They just merged with Japan in the West. So could be happening.
Now, quickly, I just want to go over we did get a ban list in Digimon. I know a lot of guys don't play it, so I'm not going to like go into any deep analysis here, but some light fare. So we actually got a banned card in Digimon again. This is, I think, the second one ever. They actually banned a protagonist, Matt Ishida. It's a cost 4 tamer, and it's purely because in the purple hybrid deck, there was this looping mechanic you could do with this tamer in purple hybrids where the hybrid would pick up the mat from your trash, then the mat would pick up the hybrid from your trash, and you could do this over and over again every single turn, which made the deck very explosive. It could generate a lot of advantage. With that in mind, if you hate the purple hybrid deck, Jack Raid went to 1. This is a memory gaining option card. It costs 0 memory, but it gains 1 memory for every 10 cards in your trash. You ran Jack Raid, you got free memory. They've been cracking down on memory generating cards. They did the same thing to Blinding Ray, the yellow option that you gained you gained 2 memory for trashing one of your security. Bandai said enough of that, y'all. No more free memory, or at least no more multiples. You can run one of each of these cards. Fenrir Lugamon for the Take Mikazuchi OTK deck. That guy got hit to 1. It was one of my favorite decks. So the basic concept of Digimon is that you have this memory marker. And the moment you pay enough memory to send the marker to the opponent's side, their turn begins. You resolve all effects, their turn begins. But this Fenrir Lugamon had the inheritable effect, which means that this effect will always be in effect as long as the Digimon's on the field. The turn does not pass unless your opponent has 3 or more memory. So usually, if your opponent has 1 or more memory, their turn begins. This guy pushes it back like 2
effectively,
steps.
he's kind of changing the mechanics to extend how long your turn can literally last. I'll say a very loose Yu-Gi-Oh equivalent would be, imagine if like you got main phase 3.
One of the more important things they hit was Mirage Galgamon, another kind of memory tricking card where, while the Mirage Galgamon deck hasn't been huge in the TCG as of late, the Mirage Galgamon BT11 card has always been around because he can steal memory during your opponent's turn. And he's been doing it since he came out. Nobody likes their turns being taken from them. And this card has always been fairly problematic. They hit the promo Agunimon and Lobomons, the hybrids. I think they just don't want easy, cheap hybrid shenanigans for Ancient Garurumon and Ancient Greymon. Those are 2 big OTK decks. And then they hit Kuzuhamon, who she enabled the Taomon Loop deck that we only just got to really play in the West. It would have been degenerate had we gotten to play with it more. Well, that's done. So it sounds like there was a lot of cleaning house with this Digimon ban list. We got a lot of stuff that's problematic out of the game. Oh yeah, and they did a conditional ban again. This time it's Shoto Kazama and Mother Reaper. You cannot play those 2 cards together in the same deck. They're both legal. You could run them at 4, but separately.
Can't be in the same deck. Okay.
And that's really it. So if you were burned out by the last Digimon metagame, and you heard any cards on this list that really grinded your gears, well, they're not a problem anymore. So come on back. We need you. We really do.
They're so desperate. Okay, well, I've got a quick Pokemon TCG Pocket update. Oh. So you know how there was a lot of controversy around trading in Pokemon TCG Pocket?
I have done 1 successful trade.
Yeah, people did not love that. Well, here's the trading feature update. Thank you for sharing your feedback on the trading feature in Pokemon TCG Pocket. We are continuing to read your comments and investigate ways to improve the feature. For some context, people didn't like trading and had a bunch of
There was like 2 different currencies, and you had to have extra copies of cards as a whole thing.
Just made it very tedious to trade. So with these changes, we hope that trading between players will be more accessible and enjoyable. The removal of trade tokens. Trade tokens will be completely removed, and players will no longer need to exchange cards to obtain the currency required for trading.
Okay.
I think that's a really great start. I thought that was kind of a very involved system. Instead, trading cards of 3 diamond, 4 diamond, and 1 star rarity will now require Shine Dust. When you open a booster pack, Shine Dust will automatically be earned if you obtain a card that is already registered in your card decks. I think I see what they're doing
there. Any duplicates, right, will degenerate dust.
Will just automatically give you dust. Currently, Shine Dust is also required to obtain Flare, so we're looking into increasing the amount offered since it will also be needed for trading. Altogether, this change should allow you to trade more cards than you could before this update. Trade tokens you currently own can be converted to Shine Dust when the item is removed from the game. And there are no changes in how 1 diamond and 2 diamond rarity cards are traded. So
that's interesting because, like they said, Shine Dust is used to just get the exact cards you want without having to pull them.
But now it's also useful for trading. So.
Which makes sense. But if we're gonna let people exchange their extra trade points or trade coins into Shine Dust, you could just not trade and just get exactly the cards you want using.
So my suspicion, because that's what I was kind of thinking too. My suspicion would be then that like it will be easier to get a trade through Shine Dust than it will be to generate a card through it. That'd be the only way to, in my opinion, make it. Because if they're sharing the same currency, then you're right. Like, why not just save your shine dust and get the card you want? Like, this isn't a matter of like, is there any benefit to getting a card through a trade versus just crafting it? Like,
I mean,
I wouldn't
if
think
you're
so.
trading, you have to have something somebody else wants.
So, like, I mean, there's like a sort of
exchange for it.
social gratification, but I mean, like, whatever, right? Now, here's a feature that's in development. A feature will be added that will allow you to share cards you're interested in trading for via the in-game trading function. So, kind of maybe more of a, like a, here's what I'm looking for. Like,
Yeah.
here's what I have for trade.
I mean, I talked about it before with that old game, Guilty Dragon, I played. There was a trading system in that game, but you could post all the cards you were willing to trade and all the cards you were willing to trade for. And so as long as that criteria was met, trades would just happen when you're not paying attention.
So this is good. I mean, I'll always give a company their props for like listening to people and trying to make changes. It's not a guarantee. Like some companies don't care what you think and they will just keep on carrying on. So
all right, you could just say EA and not just beat around the bush.
yeah. So it's cool that they have made these changes. I just wanted to give that quick update. For people who play TCG Pocket, I'd love to hear opinions and like stuff on these changes. I just pull a few cards every now and then. I'm not like super actively playing it. So
I pull cards, I build decks, and I don't play them.
any other card game news?
Yeah, so this one caught me off guard. I don't know how I didn't even see this before. Bushy Road has a new game. Godzilla CG.
The Godzilla card game, I guess is what that is.
Yeah, because they showed off their Godzilla -1 starter deck. -1 was I believe, the latest Godzilla movie release. It was limited in the States.
2023, I think.
But yeah, it was announced. This was announced at Gamma Expo that in July they're releasing the Godzilla card game.
Okay.
And
I see this. It's on ICV2.
yes, and they have descriptions for the first set it looks like. 80 different cards. There are rage cards. I don't know if that's a rarity or just a type of card in general.
Yeah, it might be like a egg deck in Digimons or something like that.
Godzilla eggs. And they have information on gameplay. It says it is a monsters versus the army game where players can choose to control either side. Constructed decks are 54 cards and color specific. Players can use up to 4 of any card in the first set. There will be red, blue, and white cards. Bushy Road also introduced 2 starter decks for the game, Heisei Series and Godzilla -1. Each fixed deck contains 60 cards. Starters come with a deck, booster, rule sheet, and paper playmat. Starters will retail for $18 each.
Okay, and I also saw with the sets, there were 80 types of cards and rage cards, 30 commons, 22 uncommons, 18 rares, 10 super rares, and 6 rage cards. Packs are going to have 7 cards with 12 packs in a display, and so a box will retail for $54, which I guess is to say then that
Cheap box.
it's about $3 per pack, or wait, no, 54 divided by 12. I guess it's not a clean. Anyway, yeah, so that's the pricing and stuff on it, it looks like. What do you think about the idea of a Godzilla card game?
For some people, A1, right? Godzilla is one of the most popular franchises in the world, and I know some die-hard Godzilla fans.
Yeah.
But
This is like so out of nowhere. I had no idea this was a thing.
look, I didn't know either. And just because I like Godzilla, I can't change my stance on the state of card games. Is there room for a Godzilla card game?
Well, let's see if I can think of any poignant thing to say besides just agreeing with you, because I think you're right. I think that there's not. It just sounds like it's just another card game, but like, it seems like it would maybe just appeal to kind of an older crowd. Like, I know that people who like Godzilla tend to kind of be like almost like Gen X, like millennials, Gen X, like.
But Godzilla is timeless. Once kids see Godzilla for the first time, now they're Godzilla fans.
That's true.
That's how Godzilla
And
works.
he is in Fortnite, so right.
Godzilla is in Fortnite.
I guess power to them. They're going to be, like you said, they're going to be showing more at Gamma Expo in July. So I guess that's when we'll maybe
Though I guess I am curious about the gameplay here.
What
Because
is a rage card?
they called it a monster versus army game, which made me think of those games where one person plays like a boss deck and then like other people play like regular decks. But not, they're like, oh no, but you have constructed decks. And you can play either side. I'm genuinely curious how a game like that works. Does your deck have a monster plus an army in it? Where you're trying to use your army to kill their monster and vice versa? Or I don't get it. I'm
All
very
will be
curious.
revealed at Gamma Expo.
So I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, in July, I guess we'll find out. Or if Bushiroad wants to send us an advanced copy so we can find out. That'd be interesting.
Maybe I'll reach out. Any other card game news?
Last but not least is this Magic the Gathering secret lair kind of hint reveal thing.
Okay.
So the Magic the Gathering or Wizards of the Coast is doing their FLGS Secret Lair drop series where
What does FLGS stand for?
No idea.
Like, I'm guessing local game store is the LGS part.
That makes sense.
But what is, I don't know what F stands for.
Featured? Favorite?
First, I think, actually. This sounds familiar.
Oh, first? Okay.
It might be like one of those campaigns where it's like this is exclusively for local game stores, or it's like first available at local game stores.
Oh, that does make sense.
Someone who's listening will actually know, but
I think it was in January in Wizards of the Coast. They announced that they will be sending certain secret layers into retail because people all have been complaining about secret layers for the longest.
yeah, how the hell do you get them? Fight your way through the bots and stuff on the site.
It says recently, Wizards of the Coast released a cryptic announcement via their WPN site that one of these sets, which was also mechanically unique, was available via authorized distributors for pre-order. The announcement also mentioned that this set featured a surprise Marvel character. So we've said it before that Wizards of the Coast got their hands on the Marvel IP and they weren't going to be done with it with one set of secret layers and one booster set.
People in chat were saying like it's like a multi-year agreement, so they're going to be doing stuff for a bit.
So what's like we're going to get another Marvel character, and this one will likely be way more attainable than the last ones, since you'll be able to order through your local game store. Now I don't know if that means are these exclusively released through store? Like what if you do not have an LGS? Will you be able to do the normal way as well? Or
honestly, what I was more interested in is so what character is it? Or is it not even?
We don't know.
So it's just, there's going to be a Marvel LGS exclusive secret layer.
Yep. We don't get to know what it is, but it will likely be more attainable than ever before. Just you got to find whichever one of your game stores are actually WPN stores.
Okay, yeah, I know that's the Wizards Play Network, I think.
Oh, I thought that was like Wizards Preferred. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Well, I guess that's all the card game news.
That's all I got.
Awesome. Well, time to get into a pretty big development that's happening this week. The release of Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Yeah, so this game, I know that embargoes were like lifting earlier this week, and the game, I guess, technically releases like, by the time you guys are listening to this, it's out. But like later tonight or whatever, as we're recording this, is where you can probably preload the game. Assassin's Creed Shadows, the game that is infamously based in Japan, has garnered some controversy over its depictions of
DEI.
Yeah, a black samurai and also I guess another female character. There's a brand of gamer that's not a big fan of that.
Those aren't gamers.
But more importantly, it's kind of, in a lot of people's eyes, Ubisoft's last hurrah, like the game that might make or break them because, if you've been following this company, they're nearly going bankrupt, I think, if I'm remembering the headlines correctly. It's financially not doing super well. And the idea is that, they're putting their all into this Assassin's Creed game to make it the very best that it can be in the hopes that it will be well received and sell well enough to maybe turn things around for the company. And there's a couple of interesting stories about this, like a couple. The first that I wanted to just say off the bat is that it seems like it's reviewing pretty well so far.
I have not seen a single review.
Yeah, I have not read any reviews. I've just seen general aggregate numbers, and it seems like that's been going great for them. I've seen a lot of 8 out of 10s, 8.5s, 9s. So generally well received game. People say the gameplay is fun and stuff like that. So like I said, I have not read the reviews. I plan on maybe actually trying the game out. The last time I played Assassin's Creed was 1 and 2 on the 360. So
for me, it was Black Flag.
Oh yeah, the pirate one, right?
Love that game.
So you interested in this game? You're gonna be
110%. I knew I was in when I heard that everyone hated it before it came out. That's usually all it takes for me to become interested. Is if I hear a lot of hate for something. I probably should have listened to that hate around Madam Web, but hey, we live and we learn. But yeah, I mean, I'm completely into this. I can't get it release weekend only because I need to finish the Monster Hunter story first.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm gonna try a demo out of it. I don't know if I'll be dumping my $70 right out the gate, but it sounds like people are liking it. This is gonna be maybe a controversial thing to say. I do not cheer for the demise of any game actually. So
I cheered for Concord.
Yeah, Alec was not a big fan of Concord, but I do not want this Assassin's Creed game to do badly, so that way it sticks it to Ubisoft, and then the company has to close, and there's no more Assassin's Creed.
Oh, if the next NBA 2K flops, I'll cheer for that too.
Yeah, so I want this game to do well. I think that Assassin's Creed, whatever opinions people might have about it, was still a very formative game for a lot of people. And I do actually think that it pushed the sort of open world, just that genre forward a lot in the early 2010s.
And I'm against Pal World.
Yeah.
Just as you go to take the high road, I got to remind people of my low roads.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it is a game that I would like to see do pretty well. People are upset about some elements of the game, that they feel are maybe too woke or whatever. But here's something that I thought was similar and related. So Ubisoft is actually going to be able to sue people who harass developers of Assassin's Creed. Yeah, they say Ubisoft is ready to sue players for harassing Assassin's Creed Shadows developers. Reportedly, the studio has an entire team that is monitoring Twitter posts and YouTube videos. So here's what they've got to say.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Assassin's Creed Shadows, undoubtedly one of the most divisive and controversial games in recent years, is set to launch in just 3 days. That was, when this was written. And the entire internet, both those looking forward to the game and those critical of what they've seen so far, is buzzing with anticipation, albeit for different reasons. So, basically, here's what's going on. A Ubisoft employee whose identity remained undisclosed revealed that the company has an anti-online harassment plan prepared for Assassin's Creed Shadows release. Reportedly, the company has a dedicated team on standby that monitors networks such as Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit, and is ready to act quickly in the case of a targeted attack, offering psychological and legal support to employees who may be targeted. Apparently, Ubisoft is so concerned about backlash that it has even advised developers not to post on social media that they work at Ubisoft in order to avoid harassment. Perhaps the most surprising detail, however, is the employees claim that lawyers are prepared to file complaints in the event of confirmed harassment situations, and as is often the case with statements like this, the wording raises questions about what exactly Ubisoft considers to be harassment. So, some people are obviously concerned that Ubisoft might just classify harmless online trolling and criticism of the game as harassment, and other people disagree. So what do we think about this?
So I'm going to take a particular path here. I'm actually going to applaud Ubisoft for this. And you know why? It's the first time, I feel like in a long time, where I've heard that a large gaming company is trying to protect their employees.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a little misguided on how they're doing it. Maybe it'll be a bit heavy-handed. But I can't tell you the last time we had a story where it sounded like a company was like, hey, we're trying to protect our employees, the people that actually help make these games, the creatives, the drivers of innovation. They actually care to some degree. I can't say whether or not this is too much, or I mean the game's not out yet. But hats off to Ubisoft for valuing your employees.
Yeah, I agree. I'll keep it honest. I think that more companies need to be doing this because, like, you know, what I said about the Harada tweet a couple weeks ago that I pointed out, where like somebody was, you know, complaining and he kind of went off on them, is like, I think the internet has emboldened a lot of people to just be terrible to game developers. And there is this sort of misalignment with what I think people don't like about games and versus how they like treat. So, you know, it's fine to dislike a game. No one says you have to like anything. I think that it gets weird though when people will just send death threats and like, you know, dox like developers and all these strange things because something about a game changed. You change the way a character looks or like some element of a game or whatever. You think it's too woke, whatever that thing might be. I don't think that there's ever a good reason to like send targeted harassment at like developers or their families. And so this is good. Like, don't let people get so used to, you know, their online trolling and stuff that they feel like they can like get more and more emboldened and like take it another step and then take it another step. So
you have to do the, like, it's okay to be upset with these companies for making bad games. But I promise you, there's never been a game dev who's like, yep, I can't wait to go and make this bad game and ruin everyone's days and lives. I want to waste people's money and time. Game devs don't think that way. They have a goal. They have an artistic work they want to create. And then to the best of their ability, they do just that. And being mad at them and complaining about them isn't going to do anything. Heck, the person running the social media account can't do anything about it. They likely didn't even work on the game, so yelling at them isn't going to do anything either.
I mean, I think that at the end of the day, like, a lot of times these developers are just doing their best. That applies to every game company you're at. Just because they nerfed your favorite character in some game or banned a card in your favorite deck or changed something... It's just that I just don't think there's ever an excuse to really like harass people and like go after their livelihoods and all this stuff because they're just human beings and they're just doing the best that they can.
Aim higher. Look up the totem pole.
I mean, even in that case, like I think that the best way to deal with this sort of thing is just like, and I think that, so this is kind of a more broad internet thing that I just feel like people need to get better at. Just pay with your wallet and then forget about it. Because the best thing that you can actually really do in most cases is if you don't like a product or like a service or a movie or whatever, is just don't buy it and don't give it the time of day. I think that when I look
don't give it engagement online either.
Yeah, don't give it so much engagement online. When I look at the backlash around Assassin's Creed Shadows and like there's been plenty of other games, what I really see is a game that is living rent-free in a lot of people's heads. Like people who are like, I hope Ubisoft fails. They made this game so bad. It's woke. I hope Assassin's Creed dies and blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm going to argue with people and people are going to argue back. And like, and I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Like, listen, if you like the game, you can buy it and you can play it and that's your way of supporting it. And if you don't like it, don't buy it. Don't talk about it. Move on to the things you do like. It's simple, but I think that so much of the internet discourse is, you know, predicated on it's not enough to just not support it. You have to... You
gotta let everyone else know.
Yeah, you gotta go
support it. Because otherwise, did you not support it? If you don't tell me you didn't, I don't know you didn't support it.
If a tree falls in a forest, you know, no one hears... that whole thing. So yeah, I think like that's kind of the best way to deal with these things. I'm with Ubisoft. I think protect your employees. A lot of companies do not necessarily protect their employees, so I think it's refreshing to hear that they're trying to do this.
I think the CEOs of all these companies should stand in front of the bullets of social media for their employees.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Assassin's Creed Shadows it's out this week. If you're playing it, let us know what you think about it. That
does remind me of a quote I saw from one of the developers of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it was kind of more to your point earlier in the story where you were talking about how kind of desperate they are for this game to do well. I think the quote was, if this game sells only moderately well, we're in trouble. So Ubisoft really needs this.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not even telling anybody they have to go buy it. I'm hoping that it does well, but whether or not it's good or bad is like up to you to decide if you want to buy this game. You know,
I don't need any more talented game devs losing their jobs.
Yeah, and that's what'll probably happen if it doesn't.
CEOs, they can lose their jobs. I don't care about them, but you know.
One last little quick thing on Assassin's Creed Shadows is that the Japanese parliament apparently did not approve too much of the way that you can destroy shrines in the game. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Hiroyuki Kata reviewed early gameplay footage of Assassin's Creed Shadows and raised concerns about a shrine being destroyed in the game, a shrine from his home district appearing without permission to use its name. So he also then points out the risk of the game encouraging real-world vandalism, noting that some tourists have climbed shrine gates and committed graffiti, and that this kind of cultural disrespect is unacceptable. So, he says, Japan will not simply remain silent on such issues. Showing respect for local cultures should be common sense. So it sounds like, some people in Japanese parliament do not love that aspect of Assassin's Creed Shadows.
They're right for wanting to protect their culture, 100%. I would hope that people aren't running around trying to emulate Assassin's Creed in Japan. Like, it'll be crazy to pay all that money, fly away to Japan just to act like a jackass.
I mean, YouTubers do it. But no, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of like the whole like video games are causing kids. It's like the same crowd that wants to like ban video games because they make kids like angry and violent and all that stuff when there's not really any substantiated evidence to suggest that. And it just, it doesn't really, like, here's the thing. Assassin's Creed and all these games are, these are fantasy. Like, these are not meant to be completely historically accurate. These are not meant to be completely realistic. They're just sandbox games where you can run around and do crazy stuff and, like, attack enemies. And there's a story. And you can romance a bunch of characters and you can, visit a bunch of places and do a bunch of things. Because it's, like, it's not real. Like, I think that,
I'm not going to go slit a guy's throat because I saw it in Assassin's Creed. Even though it didn't look cool, I'm not just going to do it. Like, even though I have the means and, like, the experience in game to pull it off, I'm just not going to go do it. Like, that's just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I don't know. A lot of the people that are oftentimes, like, seeing this footage and making these statements, they tend to be older. And so I think...
Oh, they can't tell that what they see on screen isn't real, can they?
That actually is the case a lot, and this isn't meant to be just a criticism of like Japanese parliament. I'm just saying like
it's all old people.
It's just anytime that you sort of if you're like if you show your mom just isolated 1 minute gameplay of you playing Ace Combat or whatever. Like,
what a great game.
And they just see, wow, that kind of realistic looking plane is like shooting other people. That's bad. And then like that's all they get is like this little 30-second clip.
Man, they wish dogfights don't happen nearly as much as they do in Ace Combat.
So it's just kind of one of those things where I think that when you get a little slice of it, it probably looks bad. But like that's just a video game. Like they're all kind of meant to be like a release. So
like, I mean, maybe the problem is video game graphics are too good. People can't tell the difference. They see a shrine get destroyed, it feels like the real one got destroyed. And I think if innocent shrines are like religious symbols, I guess the more devout you are, there could be some inner turmoil seeing like the desecration of your religious mark. I mean, so to some degree, I could say you probably wouldn't like seeing that, but it's not real, and I would hope nobody would try and emulate that.
Yeah, I hope that distinction's clear. Okay, here's another one.
What you got?
So Masahiro Sakurai says Japanese developers should avoid trying to appeal to Western tastes. So Masahiro Sakurai, who is the very famously known Smash Bros. Director and creator, but also has directed other games like the Kirby series, Kid Icarus, has a YouTube channel where he talks about game development or all that stuff. Yeah, so he says he was recently awarded the Art Encouragement Prize from the Japanese government's Agency for Cultural Affairs for his remarkable achievement with the Masahiro Sakurai Creating Games YouTube channel. Cool. I think he definitely deserves that. That's
an award for a YouTube channel. Huh.
As part of that, he conducted an interview with Intax in which he stressed a need for Japanese developers to focus on creating games with domestic appeal rather than trying to cater to Western tastes. When asked how Japan can keep up with the booming gaming markets in regions such as China, Sakurai simply stated, "It's not really my own idea, but as an industry trend, I think Japanese people should keep pursuing the things that Japanese people like." He goes on to say that the success of Japanese games in the West had led many teams in the region to join a growing trend of making Americanized works. However, he doesn't necessarily believe that Western gamers are looking for this, stating, "I think that they seek the uniqueness and fun of Japanese games." So, yeah, Masahiro Sakurai stressed that his opinion is just one way of looking at the topic, but we think it's a pretty sound approach. You know, we as in, I guess, the reporters from Nintendo Life. Yeah. So, what do you think about that?
I mean, the first thing I thought about from his statement was Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, that's a really great example.
A series that is historically very JRPG, emphasis on the J, and then 16 was clearly inspired by the kind of dark medieval hype from the Game of Thrones series from the West. And then the game came out, wasn't a bad game, but it did not really find an audience.
Yeah, I think what ends up happening with a lot of these Japanese game series is that they do want to appeal to the West, and they maybe in the mid 2000s and kind of early 2010s, I think that there was this impression that, you know, going for like gritty realism in your graphics, or, you know, maybe like more just Western depictions of like guns and combat and like turning more things into like an action RPG as opposed to just a turn-based RPG. These were the directions that you needed to go in for your game series to survive sometimes or thrive in other markets. And as somebody who, a lot of my favorite games are, you know, Japanese games, I don't think that games really like benefited much from that. Like, I think that he's right that oftentimes what we enjoy about, you know, games that originate in Japan, whether that's Mario or Street Fighter or, you know, Mega Man, whatever, is just some of that unique flavor that only they have.
Right.
So I'm with him. I think that it's like when I look at Final Fantasy 16, what I remember sort of happening to it was like Japanese players felt a little alienated because it wasn't really the Final Fantasy they knew and loved. And Western players, it just sort of like
it was actually
got lost
the
in
same.
the shuffle. Like, it felt unremarkable because it just kind of felt like it's similar to many other games that look and feel the same way. So
I would take a risk and say that using Final Fantasy as our example, Western Final Fantasy players like Final Fantasy games for much the same reason as Japanese Final Fantasy players. So to then pursue a westernized version of Final Fantasy doesn't make a whole lot of sense if the player base that you have in the West they're already fine with the way Final Fantasy is. Now, I know the idea was to reach a larger Western audience, but in the process of not finding them, because I just don't think I don't think it stood out to a lot of Western gamers. They lost that core Japanese and even their core Western audience who were just like, this isn't really the Final Fantasy I've come to know and love. Like, and once again, I didn't hate it. It was missing that flavor. And I guess that's just a Japanese style thing. Did you know, this one's only tangentially related to my story. Did you know that there's like a Looney Tunes movie in theaters right now?
I had no idea.
Yeah, I only found that out this week. It already came out. I think it's called The Day the Earth Blew Up.
Okay.
It came out. I've heard like good things from people who watched it, but its numbers have not been stellar box office wise.
Okay.
But for some ungodly reason, with the release of this movie just this past weekend, Warner Brothers has went ahead and pulled all of their Looney Tunes content off of Max.
That's really random.
Like, so 100% of all the Looney Tunes shorts on Max are now, gone. That's 40 years worth of animated shorts from the 1930s up to the 60s. These are animations that were like a cornerstone of people's childhoods and the animation
several
industry
generations
at
childhoods
large.
actually, when you think about it. Because that's like we would have maybe been watching some of it, and like our parents would have, and maybe even their parents. So
And the thing is, you would think, well, shouldn't that go untouched? I mean, it's the Looney Tunes. It's one of the most Warner Brothers things that have ever existed in history. But they've pulled it, and this is continuing a trend of Warner Brothers kind of deplatforming their animations and then not offering alternatives to view them.
Do you think that maybe that just means they're working on their own streaming service? Like maybe they want to kind of have a Disney Plus? Because Warner Brothers, do they have?
They have Max. They own it.
So maybe they just don't want people seeing it. That's really weird.
It is strange to do that when you have a Looney Tunes movie in theaters right now.
Yeah.
And then I can't help but remember that the movie that got them flamed pretty bad, what was it called? It was a Wile E. Coyote movie featuring I forget the actors' names, but there was that Warner Brothers cartoon movie. It was, I think, from 2 summers ago. It was finished, and Warner Brothers pulled it so that they could get a tax write-off.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah,
and it never came out.
That's so strange.
I don't know why Warner Brothers is so hot and cold on their older animation properties, since that's their foundation. I mean, my hope is that they're pulling it off their platform because they think they can have it hosted cheaper somewhere else. That's my hope. But
I saw a story about this from last year. They said that was an error.
An error?
Yeah, but like there's something from over a year ago. Like Looney Tunes removed from HBO Max. This is like an error, but this is like some story I'm seeing from like a year ago. So
this one's from March 17th, 2025.
Okay, so this is like a new thing
and directly connected to the movie that has released. And in fact, the day the Earth blew up, I don't have an article for this, but I read that there are theaters that are already pulling it from their lineups, even though it's only been out for a few days.
I just would love to know why.
I mean, maybe it's a sign of a cultural shift. But are people not gonna watch?
Shift? Because I mean, like a cultural shift would be people are not watching it.
That's true. These are corporations.
This is just a corporate shift, as in like people are not allowed to watch it now. Like it's like I could totally buy it if someone told me that maybe like Looney Tunes aren't getting as many views today as they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, whatever. But maybe, I guess they just feel like kids aren't watching them. And so maybe is it more money to keep them up there than it is to not?
Maybe it is. Like, how is there a Looney Tunes movie out right now and I heard next to nothing about it? They didn't even really market this film. And that, which kind of lines up with them pulling all of their Looney Tunes works off of Max. If they're not even really putting money into marketing their film that's already out, why would you host all your older work still? It doesn't feel like they believe in their own property.
Yeah, that's strange. Well, here's another quick one. Well, maybe not so quick, actually.
Uh-oh.
New Texas bill can make incredibly popular anime and video games illegal. So this is something that you've probably maybe heard about a little bit. There's so goddamn many ads on freaking Dexerto. Leave me alone. A Texas bill that was unanimously passed by state senators will, if it gets instated as actual law, criminalize the possession of any material depicting a minor in obscene ways. So though Senate Bill 20 is structured in a way that mainly pointed at the usage of AI software to create this type of material, cartoon or animation are also specified. So some of the most popular anime, manga, and games of all time contain these sorts of depictions. Depending on how Texan lawmakers feel about certain series, there's a good chance many of the most popular anime and manga series ever could be affected. So, yeah, this is kind of interesting. I'm going to actually read the exact wording so that we have a baseline to go off of.
Okay.
Senate Bill 20 is intended to be rolled out as an amendment to Chapter 43 of Texas's Penal Code, with the section reading as follows. A person commits an offense if the person knowingly possesses, accesses with intent to view, or promotes obscene visual material containing a depiction that appears to be of a child younger than 18 years of age, engaging in activities described by Section 43.21, regardless of whether the depiction is an image of an actual child, a cartoon or animation, or an image created using artificial intelligence applications or other computer software. So, yeah. That's kind of their wording for it.
Okay, so that does sound like, Japanese animation would be included, right? That doesn't sound like it would be excluded.
Yeah, so the thing is, the headline's kind of a little salacious because A, this isn't necessarily even a law yet, and then also B, it does not really, the wording it's a bit vague, but I think people's concern is because like so many anime have characters that are like high schoolers and are, involved in the stories or whatever. And anime is kind of infamous for drawing characters in a very, sometimes suggestive way. So people's fear is that, well, they might ban anime, or ban some anime that depict characters like that. What are our thoughts?
All right, guys. I need you to bear with me because my take here may not be very popular. I say go ahead. I honestly feel that if we can dump one of the biggest stigma that's been on the back of anime for decades, all at the cost of losing some, I'm honestly with that. I love anime, and anime that would be banned underneath this bill, I probably have ones that I love that would be banned under these laws or the potential laws. But if that means going forward, anime can abandon this this shadowy figure of underage seeming characters in sexually explicit attire and situations, I'm honestly with that. Because it's always been this bit of a gray area with how in certain anime and in certain scenes, they show things that are not really chill. And you can ignore it, you can move past it, but it happens often enough where anime has a reputation for it. If I have to lose some of my older favorite anime so that going forward this doesn't have to be a discussion, I'm honestly fine with that. I could actually think of so many anime that already don't have depictions like that will be perfectly fine. I know people don't love the idea of government telling you what you can or can't watch. It's not really an issue for me.
Okay, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm going to not really take a strong stance on this because I really just don't feel like I entirely understand what their wording is. But I'll say this much. I think that things like this, I fear, who is doing the deciding and who's doing the enforcing, because that really dictates a lot of things. Like, I agree that there are some anime where, there's kind of the lowly trope or things like that can really be very off-putting. Some people have those sorts of complaints about Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like Trap Tricks or something like that. But I guess it's just weird because one of the examples that they raised in the article was say Persona, which is a game that has, a teenage cast and actually presents, sort of things like exploitation, like child exploitation as an definitively bad thing. That's what you're fighting against in the game because there are teachers and other adults who are awful people and you go after them, banned. Because, well, it depicted children in this sort of certain type of way, like teenagers. So should that just go? does it, cross this line that these Texas lawmakers, I guess, are deciding? Like,
Do you think it should go?
I don't think so. Like, I think something like Persona is a really great story, and I think it's like, got a good message, but it has to use a sort of like realistic approach, which is that, yeah, like sometimes this stuff, there are awful adults who do these awful things to kids like in high school or whatever, and they are bad people. They should be stopped and confronted about it, and the story does do that. So I would hate if that kind of like came under the line of fire. But we just don't know if it would, because like it just depends on like who interprets it.
So I'm looking at it as I don't get to make the law. I don't get to interpret the law. All I get to do is abide by it or not and get locked up, right? The way I look at it is if something like that were to pass, I would have very little say in it. And all I can do is look at, well, there is some good with the bad. We will lose if this came to pass. There are some great like pieces of media we'll lose. There are some troubling ones we'll lose. But I think at least going forward wouldn't be a problem anymore. That's the way I look at it, at least.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I like the sound of it really. I think it just sounds like one of those things that's sort of, it can be whatever they need it to be to like get rid of media that they don't like. And, whenever I hear stuff like that, I just get an uneasy feeling. Because, I don't know, I just like, with the Persona example, I think that could be like one. But there's also so many times where it's just ambiguous in the world of like fiction and like, writing and media and stuff in general, where like things can be so ambiguous. I wouldn't want like a story like Persona to like not be able to be told because, well, there's like, these young characters. Like, what if we're like, okay, no Final Fantasy VII because like Yuffie is a teenager? That's true. Like, what do we? It's just there's just no more of it.
But I guess then they have to decide is that a sexual depiction of Yuffie or not? And I guess that's really up to these policymakers to then decide, which is not great because these are people who don't appreciate the work itself.
That's what I'm getting at is like, I think the idealistic approach would be, yes, this will get rid of all of the like kind of creepy sexualized like teenagers in anime. Good if it does. I don't really like that stuff very much myself. The thing is though, a lot of like cool anime have traces of that, but like it's so open to interpretation that much like with the example of like the Japanese parliament looking at some footage of Assassin's Creed where a person can like climb on a temple and saying that this is bad, it's like, let's be honest, if you show an old 70-year-old senator any clip from any anime at all, they just won't know what's going on.
We are moving to deport all Saiyans from this country. I think they are dangerous people.
But I think like you have to really like take that a bit seriously. Like they don't know anything about what any anime is. Like, and I'm talking about like remove any sexual components. I'm saying like if you show them a clip from Dragon Ball, they'll be lost. If you show them a clip from, totally unrelated different rom-com anime, they will be lost. If you show them some random period piece, they'll be lost. These people don't watch anime and they don't play games. Right. So when I like hear about this stuff, I'm like, I don't trust these people to really have like a good stance on any of that.
But this is like a political thing. And as far as like you and I, the people sitting here, all we can do is try to elect people who won't make bills or we try to elect people who who have our same views on art. That way we're not put in a position where we might have to lose our favorite things because some out of touch senator thinks, oh, this is too obscene or this doesn't vibe with my sensibilities. I mean, the people you vote for don't always win. And if that bill passes in Texas, I'm sure there's plenty of Texans who will be distraught. But I guess that's why you shouldn't just ignore politics, even if you think it's beneath you or it's above you or it does nothing to do with you. Well, it kind of does, because one day your favorite anime might just be gone.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting one. I want to hear what people have to say about it. It sounds like it isn't actually a law yet, so maybe there's nothing to really be concerned about.
I mean, bills. I mean, if you ever taken entry level civics class, many bills don't actually become laws. There are so many more bills than there are laws in the world. So it's probably nothing. But hey, if it gets people arguing in the comments, that's engagement. So
okay, well, I guess it's time then to do some pot. We got some viewer questions. As you guys know, you can submit these down below, and we'll read and respond to them.
From Kalfer. Hey, Pod. I'm a longtime Yu-Gi-Oh fan and I have fond memories of the original Yu-Gi-Oh anime, especially the episodes at the end of season 1 where Yugi and Joey go into Kaiba's VR Duel Monsters game to rescue him. As a kid, I thought it would be awesome if Konami made a real video game based on that game. I feel like the closest thing to that is Falsebound Kingdom, which I also loved playing as a kid, but is a real-time strategy game rather than something like in the show. You talked last week on the pod about what direction Konami could go in terms of mobile games. And with that said, would an open world RPG Yu-Gi-Oh game be a neat idea for Konami to explore, either in VR or not, or even as a mobile game or multi-platform? As a developer of VR games, I don't think VR's current state would do it justice, but who knows? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so this person is talking about a VR Duel Monsters game sort of based on the very short, 3-episode arc after Duelist Kingdom.
At least like an open world RPG style game.
Yeah, it's serendipitous that you mentioned this because I did recently do a video where I kind of explored some of the Yu-Gi-Oh's relationship with VR. It's a video essay I did over in the main Team APS channel, so check it out. I think it's a really good one. I put a lot of work into that. Yeah, what do you think? You think this would be a cool VR game to have?
Yes. Yu-Gi-Oh and VR is synonymous. It feels like the only thing that's more VR-y to me than Yu-Gi-Oh is .hack. Yu-Gi-Oh needs a VR style game, but like Kalfer said, or that's misspelled. No, that's Kalfer. It's Kalfer, not Kalfer. But like Kalfer said, the current state of VR gaming and VR technology, I just don't think is really what I want and need for Yu-Gi-Oh.
What do you want and need?
Oh my gosh. A fully immersive experience where it's not just a matter of me just placing cards down on a table in front of me. There's many VR experiences where you can do such a thing. I want to be able to exist alongside with the monsters that I summon. When I activate a spell, I want it to feel like I am casting said spell. It defeats the purpose if we're just making a game where we just put cards on a table. We do that in real life anyway. I want to take a step further into that world.
Right. Well, I did go into some detail about this in my video, but I think that there are a couple of ways you can sort of handle a Yu-Gi-Oh VR experience. And the first is it could just be a card game simulator. You're dueling as you would in real life. And, you're putting the cards down, the monsters are coming out of the cards, and when you use a spell, it kind of has an effect and stuff. I think that there's some issues with that, though. The first being that's expensive and stuff to make. This Yu-Gi-Oh has so many cards, and you have to model them all, animate them all, things like that. The second thought, though, that I had was actually something a lot closer to what this person is describing, which is basically that sort of virtual world arc where I think creating a curated, story-driven experience would actually be a lot more fun than a card game simulator for Yu-Gi-Oh! VR. I just think that we have enough ways to kind of digitally play Yu-Gi-Oh! I can play Master Duel, I can play Duel Links, there's a few other video games and stuff. I think what would be cooler is where you're running around, and let's say the game only has maybe a total of 200 monsters in it. But those 200 monsters are well modeled and well animated, and there's a story that's happening. Do you remember in that arc, Yugi and his friends rode on the Curse of Dragon and stuff, and everybody had their dragon that they would ride on, and they would use their monsters to traverse the terrain and to destroy obstacles in their way. It's an action adventure game with Yu-Gi-Oh monsters, and you just summon your monsters by playing a card. That's the aesthetic of it. But I think that would be super cool. and it lets them curate the experience so that they don't have to like try to cut corners to make like 13,000 card images. Instead, they just pick the ones that are like that they want to have in the story and like do that. I think that'd be fun.
I mean, there's all kind of because of the way Yu-Gi-Oh cards are designed now. Just off the top of my head, I can think of so many different types of Yu-Gi-Oh RPG game I could imagine. I think of a game based around Sky Striker, where it's an action RPG like Nier Automata or Stellar Blade. I think of you could do a tactical style game using one of the plethora of like mecha archetypes, or maybe all the mecha archetypes, and you can do like a grid based strategy game where it's too limiting to think of Yu-Gi-Oh as just a card game when we have entire worlds that were given up to us from the anime, but that even the cards just give us worlds that we can play with. We can do whatever we want. You can make a Yu-Gi-Oh pinball game, for God's sake, if you really want to. It doesn't have to be a card game.
Yeah, I think like it's a shame because I know that games like that are very ambitious and they probably have some reservations about, you know, going the extra mile to make a game like that, because it's, you know, with these card game simulators, the foundation's already there and they just kind of have to like apply it to, you know, whatever. You got like Master Duel is not, I'm not a coder or whatever, I'm not a programmer, but like I can't imagine that Master Duel is so difficult in terms, like there's nothing that's ever been done like Master Duel before. It's like a card game sim. But like making a 3D Yu-Gi-Oh game where like you are running and jumping and destroying terrain and getting into like these real action fights, that's a lot. Could current VR even do that? I actually think that like there are some VR games that seem like they kind of are.
Well, it's not that VR can't do the basics of that. It just wouldn't look very good. Like,
I thought, was that game like Asgard's Wrath? Like, I saw some gameplay. It looked nice.
It looks fine. I want it to look better.
I mean, it seemed like it was pretty good. If a Yu-Gi-Oh game came out today and it looked as good as Asgard's Wrath or that one Batman like Arkham Knights or Arkham Shadow,
that one's
Arkham
a step
Shadow,
up.
Like if it looked like one of those, I'd color me in. I also think the one cool part about this too is like it wouldn't have to be. I mean, I'm sure they would maybe just make it freemium, but I would almost rather pay for like say like $60 for just a well-curated single-player experience VR game than a freemium, like, okay, another set of gems to collect and cards to pull. Like, I've had enough of that. Like, I want a game that's its own thing.
So you would buy the headset and everything?
I'd want to try a demo first. Mm-hmm. But I'd be willing to buy a headset. I think I'd be willing to. Now that there's like that Meta Quest like 3S or whatever, it's like $250 or something. I think I could be convinced.
See, the game that popped in my head just now, you know the Yakuza franchise?
Yeah.
You know it'll be fun? It's a Yakuza-style game, but it's Warrior Greffer on his many, many, many misadventures.
Yeah, that could be cool, too.
He's just as unserious. He's existed in Yu-Gi-Oh! For so long. We all know him. We all love him. Or we hate him to some degree.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I think, like, it gets into the broader conversation of just, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Needing to explore other genres. You know, I know Crossduel didn't do great, but still, it was at least a little bit different. And
I just don't think, you know, maybe let's not do so much live service, you know?
Yeah, that's what I really would like to get away from, is, like, these live service games. Because when you're creating live service games, you have to approach it from, like, a standpoint of just persistent player engagement, like, and really
now
that's
it's multiplayer first.
And that's code for basically like drain that wallet, keep you logging in, drain that wallet, like battle pass, microtransaction.
You know what it is about live service games? They have to have these gameplay loops that you can perform every day, and they can't take too long. So they can't be too engaging. They can't be not engaging enough.
There can't be like a defined endpoint.
It's like edging, where like live service games, they need you to edge so that you always come back for more every day on this regular schedule. versus a standalone title like, let's say, Spider-Man, where that game just tries to hit as hard as it can for the runtime of the game,
12-hour
and then it's
runtime.
done.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I would like a Yu-Gi-Oh RPG where like there's a full story and a world I can explore, and then like it ends, and that's okay. Like, I don't know. I guess I just don't want another set of gems to be collecting and packs to be opening, and just another way of like simulating the card game experience. Like, I want to do more with the cool monsters like Summon Skull and, you know, Celtic Guardian and Mystical Elf. Like, give them just roles within a story and things they can do as like my teammates or RPG party members or something. And I play it and I beat this well-made story, and then that's the end of it. It's
Pikmin, but it uses Dustins.
I mean, I'll take any variation on Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's coming from somebody who loves Master Duel to death. I just don't think that I want another way of just
dueling.
Believe
me, we know you love Master Duel to death.
Well, anyways, okay, here's my not next question. Here's my first question. So, speaking of Master Duel, hey guys, Andy here. In case you hadn't already covered this, how do you feel about Master Duel as a teaching tool for players to learn timing and rulings? My friends and I have certainly made plenty of mistakes in paper Yu-Gi-Oh! And once emulators became prominent, the argument I always heard was dueling book/network was better because it forced you to learn your deck's strategy. Yet I find the ease that comes with Master Duel helps me at least to memorize the combos and effects of not only my own cards, but my opponents as well. Your thoughts? It's actually funny you say this because I talked about this, I think like last week or maybe a week before in the podcast, that I did, like, I think like Master Duel is a really good tool for like learning and improving at Yu-Gi-Oh! What do you think though?
I think a decade ago, I would have disagreed. I would have said, simulators make you worse at the game. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Has changed a lot since 2015. Cards do a lot. More things trigger like optionally than ever before. I honestly believe that, you know, if you were playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, let's say in 2010 through like 2015, I think a simulator actually might have made you worse. I think there was so much more to paper, to like the strategy of paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Than it was just piloting your deck. I don't think you needed help piloting your deck back then, where it didn't feel like you were missing anything too crazy outside of a few like weird chaining scenarios that could occur. But I think nowadays there are so many different things that can and will happen in a game where simulators really help smooth a lot of that nonsense out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think like Yu-Gi-Oh!, I have heard it best described as it's a cascade of effects nowadays. Like oftentimes you are just in activating like one thing, you're going to start a new chain that's got a couple of links. And then you're probably going to start another chain that's got a couple of links. And you're going to have to pick the order of things, and so many, like just between the amount of quick effects and like activation timings and all this stuff, like there's a lot to keep up with. And I know that, yeah, somebody might argue, well, like the simulator's just holding your hand with a big glowing yellow button and you just pick the card, you don't think about it. But in reality, it does a good job of, through repetition, getting you used to that, like the structure of how chains work. We've been finding it out recently, you know, we've been doing like these theme duels between decks like Fire Kings and Mermails. Oh. These decks that are notorious for just having just chain after chain, and like, you know, if it's my turn, then my effects go on the chain first and then my opponent's go. If it's my opponent's turn, it's the opposite. And that affects so many parts about how the actual chain is going to look and resolve and what's going to be left in the field at this point and what's going to be in the grave at this point. And then like when that chain finishes, a new chain happens, and it can just get to the point where it's like handling that in real life is totally doable, and people do it in tournaments all the time. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'm saying that if you are a more just intermediate level player, I think that playing Master Duel and being constantly exposed to that same thing over and over will get you to the point where you're used to seeing it, you're used to thinking about it, and then when you do finally go and play paper again after a few months or whatever, you will find that it is easier to register those situations in your head and like visualize them and stuff.
Because if nothing else, like you said, visualize. It's visualization training. A lot of like professional athletes, they'll tell you that the key is being prepared. If you practice and you see something over and over again, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you've mastered it, right? But it gets you used. You'll react faster to it when the time comes because of that representation, because you have the visual aspect in your mind. It makes me think of playing fighting games. I've played a lot of Street Fighter, and one of the things I struggled with in Street Fighter was learning how to anti-air. I was like, man, how come whenever my opponent jumps, I never hit them in time? Everyone says you should anti-air every single jump and never let them jump for free. Why can't I do it? And someone said, well, you have to practice it, and you have to be looking for it. Like, but I don't want to be like staring at the screen, looking at the jump. No, hear me out. You practice your anti-airs when you're not playing competitively. Just keep practicing it over and over again. And then when your opponent finally jumps, you don't have to think that hard about it. Your fingers are already moving. You've developed the muscle memory and the visualization for it. It doesn't make it easy. It makes it easier. And the same is true for Yu-Gi-Oh! When you don't have such a strong understanding of every single card in your deck, you can just miss things. Sometimes they're optional. Sometimes they're mandatory effects.
And you'll just miss stuff.
Because you were in like chain link soup.
What's kind of interesting to me is I said at the beginning of the podcast, I've been going to locals a lot more lately and trying to like play more physical paper Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been having a pretty good time doing it.
He's quitting Masahiro.
Right. But the thing I've noticed is like the amount of people in paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Who are just completely lost and like fumbling through games, turns, phases, game states. You would be surprised. There are so many people. Yeah, I mean, like it can be everybody. Like it can be everybody. Like where people are they're missing chain links, activation cues. They're resolving stuff out of order. They're not like telling their opponent when they're trying to activate things. I've been like 2 weeks ago, I was at locals. And like there were two people playing, and they were like mumbling their plays, and like the other person literally could not hear. They couldn't hear each other, and like they're kind of trying to resolve stuff, and the other person didn't hear what they said, and it's like it's crazy how much like the difference between a person who is familiar with how all this works and like very comfortable doing it versus people who aren't, and they're just sort of like, oh, I guess this happens now, and like they're just two people searching their decks at the same time. When in reality, like a chain will never have you and your opponent like searching at the same time. It'll always be like, okay, chain link 3, I add this to hand, then you add, and some of it's negligible. Some of it doesn't really matter. Like, okay, if you're going to search this, I'm going to search this. We could just save time by both picking up our decks and doing it. But sometimes that actually is not the way. Like something distinctly will happen in the game state that will like put a monster in the field that changes what you can and can't search. Like it all matters. And when you play Master Duel and you see like it's so clear about when a card gets added to hand, it has a visual, like there's a visual cue and an audio cue. This just got added to hand, which resolves this effect. The deck just got shuffled, so that resolves that effect. And like chain links get a number over them. Like every little chain link, wherever it activates, the number will appear on the grave or in the field or in the hand, but you will always know like what chain link a thing is as the chain is forming. Then when it resolves, they got the little visual thing where it kind of like goes down the screen. And like, it's all great flourish, but it actually does a good job of letting you just see how mechanically a game is supposed to be playing out. And if you play it enough, it will help. At least for me, it has helped. I've seen it help for other people.
Even if you're just fumbling on Master Duel, even if you're just pressing every single yellow indicator you see, it's still teaching you what can activate in any given scenario.
Yep. Yeah, people like to, say like, oh, these little like indicators and stuff, and it's training wheels. Even that, like if you do it long enough, you'll just start to learn like how things work. So
I mean, I remember I didn't think I was learning about my Plunder Patrol deck when I was playing Master Duel, and then I kept seeing this yellow light in my grave. I'm like, wait a minute.
It's like, oh, I'm not activating.
Oh my God!
Like, oh, I've been missing this.
And at that point, I'd played paper Plunder Patrol so many times, but you know how it is. You think you know what all your cards do, and I don't like reading all my cards. Master Duel helped me out on that.
Yeah, you realize it doesn't. And I'll even go one last step further with this Master Duel thing. Is like some people kind of get upset about like when they added the imperm column, for instance. Like after you use infinite impermanence, if it's been set, it disables spells and stuff. Spells and traps in that column get negated. And they added this like visual thing where that entire like panel will kind of have a little bubbling glowing effect to just like let you know.
I thought it was like electricity. Is it bubbling?
Yeah, it's sort of like this weird thing. Well, anyway, people when that was first added were like, "What? Like that's another little Mickey Mouse feature. You should have to just be forced to remember your imperm column." But I actually think that makes a good accessibility improvement. And after you see it enough and get used to it, your muscle memory for infinite impermanence improves. And so actually when you're playing in real life, at least for me, I actually mentally see the glowing blue like line across the columns when I'm playing in real life.
Heck, Master Duel, speaking of imperm, taught me how imperm works properly. For the longest, I kept trying to use imperm out of my hand and then negate the entire column I played it in. But imperm doesn't negate the column if you're using it from the hand.
Yeah, and you know what? I didn't plan on like adding an extra rant to this, but I'm going to add this one actually here. This isn't a Yu-Gi-Oh rant. It's actually a rant on like people not understanding other people. Not everybody is as good at Yu-Gi-Oh as you are.
Facts.
So everybody likes to think like these Mickey Mouse features, all these little prompts are all free. You should have to do all this and you should know your cards and all, whatever. Not like some people are new to this. Some people, those features help them. There's wind blowing outside, by the way. It's probably going to get caught on the microphones. But
nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, like some people need the visual indicators. Some people, that helps them. It makes the game more accessible. It makes the game make more visual or auditory sense for them. And that is not a bad thing. So to me, like, I'm good with that sort of stuff. Like I've heard some people say they don't like it. They don't like that like Master Duel has like a dual log that you can check because it's like, oh, well, in the TCG you can't, keep all these notes and go back and stuff like that. Well, because like you can check, what like last turn what they set with some affected sets from deck.
Oh, okay.
And technically in TCG you couldn't, do that. But in my opinion, like that's still anything that makes the game more accessible is a win. So
agreed. We don't gain anything from this game becoming too complicated for newer or returning players.
Precisely. Like, that's the thing. Everybody kind of feels like there's like this weird pride in like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the hardest game for the best, smartest minds. And like, if you can't keep up, too fucking bad. But like, we should have things that make it easier for people to,
I think the difficulty in Yu-Gi-Oh! Should be forecasting future plays, not remembering past
every
plays.
Little thing, yeah. Anyways,
right.
Sorry I took a long time on that.
Next question. Oh, this one's a long one. Hello. Love y'all's pod and love the Retro Pack Duel style videos a lot. Thank you. I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore aside from occasional GOAT games. Love listening to the podcast despite my lack of interest in Yu-Gi-Oh! I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, dabbled in most formats, but primarily play Pauper, a common-only format, and Cube. A couple questions for the pod from the perspective of a Magic player. Number one, I heard y'all talk about in the past that the majority of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or the majority of cards a Yu-Gi-Oh player opens just goes to waste. All the bulk from the packs just get no use and collect dust. I enjoy y'all's content where you build from sealed products because it gives those cards a purpose. Why doesn't Yu-Gi-Oh have a sealed format like Draft and Yu-Gi-Oh? I know they've done 3 sets in the past meant for drafting. Were these not well received? Follow up, have y'all ever cubed in Yu-Gi-Oh? Number 2, as mentioned, I play a lot of Pauper in Magic. This couldn't work in Yu-Gi-Oh based on how the rarity system works. My perspective on the outside, why doesn't Yu-Gi-Oh have any rotating format? This could give life to new, less powerful cards and could chill out power creep. Is no rotation too built into Yu-Gi-Oh culture? Thank you for the entertainment, Cameron Schindler.
Woo! Long question, but a lot of good ones in there.
This should have been separated into 2.
Yeah, this is a whole podcast
Let me
episode.
reiterate the first question just to be clear. Why doesn't Yu-Gi-Oh have a sealed format like Draft in Magic?
Yeah, okay. So this person is right. Yu-Gi-Oh has dabbled in draft, like sort of sealed draft products and formats in the past.
In fact, it was mandatory for the tournament circuit for less than a year?
Yeah, in like 2013 or 14 when like one of the Battle Packs came out, like they briefly did a thing where like Top Cut had to play with like Battle Pack or something. So what's unfortunate about Yu-Gi-Oh is that the draft problem is sort of twofold. The way that modern sets are designed right now, you just simply cannot draft with them. It does not work because archetype support is like stratified across several sets, and the game is beyond the point of really making new staples for the most part. Like you might get like a staple card in every new set that's like a secret rare, Dominus Impulse or maybe a Pot of Prosperity, that sort of card. But generally speaking, when we play these old things like Retro Rivals and all that, we're opening like LOB and Metal Raiders and stuff, those were the formative sets where like a lot of the major spells and traps in those sets were staples. Trap holes, MSTs.
Oh, that's what made Rare Hunters so much
enemy
fun.
controllers. Yeah, and that was the fun of a lot of those old things. With modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean, like pretty much everything is just, it's archetypes. And so you're going to be trying to draft, but you're going to be missing. Here's a great example. So Supreme Darkness had some Mermail support cards in it, like some Atlantean Mermail cards.
Yep.
So did Rage of the Abyss. They each had 5. So if you open just Rage of the Abyss, you cannot build a Mermail deck, a Mermail Atlantean deck, because it was just supplementary support for stuff that existed for years. You also could not build one from Supreme Darkness because there were 5 new cards that were like separate from the other ones. And even if you were to somehow draft those two together, you still could not actually build a Mermail deck or an Atlantean deck because cards like Atlantean Dragoons and Neptibus are not printed in there. So just at its core, modern sets are just not built to be drafted in any way. And it is a shame. The good draft sets, the battle packs, just aren't made anymore. My understanding is that they did not sell very well, but damn were they fun. All right, I've talked enough. What's your thoughts?
I mean, you pretty much said everything I really could say about it. I was just going to bring up the fact that the battle packs, as fun as they are, Yu-Gi-Oh culture dictates that products like those can't sell well.
Yeah.
And that disincentivizes Konami from making them. They end up just sitting on store shelves.
When you say Yu-Gi-Oh culture, because I feel like I think I know what you're getting at, but
so the culture of Yu-Gi-Oh is so my deck based, where we take so much pride in the decks that we craft and the decks that we play that the vast majority of players can't or choose not to wrap their heads around the concept of a random deck. When it's like, well, why would I play that when I could be playing my 6 Sams? Why would I play that when I could be playing my wind-ups? Why would I play that when I could be playing my Mermails? Those are my deck, and you want me to then go pick up this battle pack, this draft set, which has no value to me as an advanced format player because, well, none of the cards in here are going to help beef up my deck. But also, if I use this product how it's intended, am I going to have more fun with a deck of random cards versus my deck? And that's a matter of opinion, but I'm saying culturally, Yu-Gi-Oh players would rather use their decks.
Yeah, and to be clear, because I want to clarify, I know people are going to hear that and be like, what? No, that's wrong. Alec is like describing how some people feel about the product. I think that it's no secret that the two of us love Battle Pack to death.
Yeah, I love Battle Pack. I love drafting
love Speed Duel. This is like,
I would replace all of modern Yu-Gi-Oh with just draft if I could.
I was say, like if Yu-Gi-Oh we just drafted Battle Packs till the end of time, I'd honestly be down. The thing is, though, I get it. I think Konami's is going to get a little critical, but that's kind of why you guys tune in. I'll be honest. I think that Konami and he asks about rotation later, so I know we're going to get into that part. It's a long question, so we're here. The way that power creep has worked in Yu-Gi-Oh, the fact that there is not a rotation, the fact that we've just kind of had this eternal format where cards just get stronger and stronger and stronger. And oh my God, it's bringing all these earlier topics from the podcast into full circle, like with the One Piece thing and the like all of it is basically players have been trained to just expect to like, you play the new thing and you don't play it because you love it to death. You play it because it's good and it's relevant right now. You get your engravers, you get your Molcharmies, you get like your Little Knights or whatever the past things were. The new engines, the new decks, because they're better, they're expensive, you want to win. so on and so forth. Like, there's almost just this massive push towards you must stay in the rat race of playing the best thing, that the idea of being or even going back feels unattractive to a lot of players. Like, Speed Duel's boring because it's low power level, or Battle Pack is boring because it's low power level. There is deck building, principles in there. Like, when you're doing draft, like, you can do the purely sealed variety where like everybody just gets 10 packs and like that is your deck. But oftentimes it's like, you're doing the pass around the table. You're picking what cards you include in your draft.
In the draft itself.
Yeah, the strategy's in the draft itself. Like, there can be a good Battle Pack 3 deck and a bad one. You know what I mean? Like, there are decisions. But I think like players are just so used to the enjoyment of like, you combo hard, you keep your foot on that gas, like, that you got to make a board where your opponent cannot play through it, and you just mercilessly choke them out between your own two hands. Like, that's how Yu-Gi-Oh is played, and so I think like people actually have a tough time slowing it down and like going backwards.
And the thing is, I think that's just how it's predominantly done in Yu-Gi-Oh. The fact of the matter is, Yu-Gi-Oh is fun in every way you play it. There are people who love draft and would love to draft Yu-Gi-Oh. There are people who love speed duels and would love to play more speed duels. There's people who love time wizard formats and would love to play more of those. Yu-Gi-Oh is always fun, but the majority of Yu-Gi-Oh players are advanced format, all gas type players.
Yeah.
And then the ones who aren't like that are very much married to their style of Yu-Gi-Oh. There's just not a lot of room for draft. There's people who would enjoy it, but not enough for Konami to say, let's make another product for it.
Yeah, because clearly those battle packs just did not sell well, and that is a shame. I truly like them. I don't know what the best improvements to make would be. Maybe you got to just add in some good reprints, some alt rarities, like some kind of chase, like pull something, because like Konami likes to kind of add maybe something can come QCR. I don't fucking know, but I wish they would bring it back.
Because like the issue with that, I think, is then people would vendor types would bust those products open to try and chase those rare cards. Then all the other cards just end up sitting there because they don't have any monetary value. And people aren't trying to buy them.
That gets into the secondary thing too, which is that I think Konami has to, and we've talked about this with the mid-level power format and stuff, and just going through this broken records over and over every week. But they have to also make the sealed draft format. Players can do it, but like it's kind of got to come from the horse's mouth. There's a lot of people who, so it's like what you said. This game just barely has the space in its devout hardcore community for draft junkies. The thing is though, there is space within the broader like interested card gamer circle, but for a lot of people, they are not going to go to the trouble of finding some obscure isolated Discord server and subreddit and dig through and all these layers to like get to it. But if Konami was just doing it, like this was just a Konami sanctioned thing, like draft at regionals, YCS's, locals, whatever, and they put out the rules and everything, suddenly a lot more soft core, more mid core players would find out and be interested. I know that answer sucks to hear because, there are people with alternate Yu-Gi-Oh formats out there and they want more people to try them out. And that's good. I'm not saying don't try them. I'm just saying that like the only way that something like draft truly takes off is if Konami is at the helm. I don't love that that's the reality. I just think that's the reality.
We're not a very big player run card game. I feel like games like Magic the Gathering are better known for it. We kind of just hang on whatever Konami gives us.
Yeah, that's why people I think are so they're in the rat race of modern. Anyway, okay, let me get to the second question because I know it's sort of related, but
we didn't even get into his next question.
Yeah, like the second question he was asking, I meant.
Okay, good. And I lost it.
His second question was about rotating format.
Okay, good, because I lost an entire note you sent me just now.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. So the second one was about why does Yu-Gi-Oh have rotation? Don't fucking know. Honestly, here's my best guess. It's just been going on so long they feel like they can't now. Like
I think it would be chaotic to implement with Yu-Gi-Oh. We don't have an easy way of marking old versus new cards outside of the set codes and the numbers on the cards themselves. And
yeah, that Bandai thing is genius, by the way.
Like,
The
it
One
works.
Piece and like Digimon things just having a little number on them. Because at this point with how do you know, how do you like
Yu-Gi-Oh,
communicate to people? And like I'm being serious. This gets back to what I was just saying. If you're a little Yu-Gi-Oh crackhead, right? You're terminally online, you know every little thing. It won't be that hard for that transition to be made for you. Like I know exactly by heart what came out in 2024 and 2023 and all this stuff. Joe Blow does not. He just does not. And you have to find an easy way to explain this to him with some watermark or some number or something, because it's so hard to expect a new person to really understand what has rotated in and out. And I think that Yu-Gi-Oh's gone on so long now that like, we're just like here in year 20, whatever, 25, 26. I think Konami's just like not worth the trouble.
And I think the transition is rough on everybody. I think it's rough on the player. I think it's rough on judges because now judges will have to check potentially 60 card decks and find even the one card that is outside of rotation because mistakes happen.
It's rough on card shops.
It's also rough on the Konami themselves because they'll have to completely change how they design like booster sets,
cards, products. It's rough on vendors, which I know a lot of people don't have that much sympathy for them, but it's an additional relevant party. It's like it would be so much growing pain, and like there's probably a real fear that in doing so you would just lose a lot of people.
But it doesn't mean it's not worth trying. It would be a little painful.
The best thing I can say about the idea of a rotating format is that it would at least get rid of the need for the constant little power creeping one-upmanship that Yu-Gi-Oh really wrestles with a lot now. And you could probably start, maybe revising how ban lists even work. Because like we were saying before, like it's just, you don't like Malice and Ryzeal, there will literally come an objective date where they are just both rotated out.
Yeah.
And you just have to know that date's coming and they'll be gone. So, I would like the idea of Yu-Gi-Oh trying out a rotation. Do I think it's likely? No. But I think it's kind of back to what you were saying. It's like the culture is so set now.
I know what it is. And This is like one of the things we've talked about in previous pods because everything's cyclical. It would essentially be and require a Yu-Gi-Oh reboot. To institute a rotation would already be kind of a reboot. Because you will be making a very large change in how Yu-Gi-Oh works and how it's played. And at that point, you might as well just fully commit to rebooting the game. Because that's how much work it would take.
Yeah, I, think so. All right, well, anyways, here's the last question so we can let you guys go and enjoy your Thursdays.
At least 30 more minutes. Here we go.
Yeah. Hey, guys. What do you guys think about Konami having trial periods where some banned cards are limited to one to see how they fare in the current meta? This is from Dre.
Okay. I think that would not be the best idea only because the Yu-Gi-Oh community would likely be I just don't think it'll be very good. I'm sorry. It's
by very good, like what about the community? You were getting at something about the community.
It's so we're a volatile group. We get loud and angry at the perception that a card is
broken,
it's overpowered, it shouldn't have been designed the way it was designed. I think it's all fun and games if we're trying out cards that don't really affect the meta game. They're like, hee, we're gonna put Change of Heart at 1. Let's see what happens, right? Like that's fun. That's not so bad. But then they say, okay, all right, you guys like that? All right, check it out. We're gonna put Pot of Greed at 1, and then like when when you start introducing a card, even temporarily, that has the potential to vastly shift the state of someone's game. Like, I don't have to worry about my opponent resolving Change of Heart on me. If they do, it's whatever. But the moment my opponent resolves Pot of Greed and they extend into a combo that wins them the game, I'd be pissed.
So I've got a bit to say about this because I've recently made a video actually here on this channel, APS Amplifier, where I was talking about like banned cards that I think could come back. And even last week on the pod, I was sort of talking about how like a lot of old banned stuff I believe could come back. I should first preface this by saying I am apparently a fairly unique type of Yu-Gi-Oh player. Maybe not that unique, you guys can tell me, but I'm unique, or at least I'm different than like what I seem to perceive online, which is that I like playing Yu-Gi-Oh and will literally play no matter what cards are or aren't legal. Like when I tell you I am so detached from the conversation of like things absolutely needing to get banned or absolutely not needing to get banned does not matter to me. Alec can tell you I play so much Master Duel all the time. I don't care whatever does or does not get banned. I don't care about annoying formats. I played during Tenpai, I played during Tier, I played during Snake Eye. Like whether they ban those decks tomorrow or never, I will just keep playing. I don't care if Maxi gets banned or doesn't get banned. If they ban it, I will keep playing Master Duel. If they don't ban it, I will keep playing Master Duel. I am very indifferent to cards coming back and all that stuff. Now that I think
about it, I've known you for over 10 years now, and I don't think I've ever heard you complain about a ban list. And like, I've heard every other Yu-Gi-Oh player in my life has complained to me about something being banned or unbanned or not banned or limit, whatever. But I don't know if I've ever heard you say, I can't believe Konami did this, or I'm so mad they didn't do this.
Because here's the truth. At my core, I don't care. I'm going to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I see the ban list as all it is like, this is the guideline that you build your deck around. That's it.
It's
there's
just a constraint.
Nothing more or less. Like, I will always just follow what the ban list is. A card comes off the list that I think shouldn't have come off. It's off now. I'm going to play it. I'm going to just deal with it. Or a card I was using in my deck gets banned. Oh, sucks. All right, I'm going to just find a replacement. Like, I think people they get so into their own heads about the idea that a card might like come back and just ruin everything, or that their deck got hit and it's just so unfair. And it's like, I truly don't care. Like, I will keep playing regardless into infinity. Here's the thing though. I say all that to answer the question with, I think that they should do this idea this person's suggesting of like bringing cards back like as test runs. We've seen Konami do it in the past. I know like there's that one time they brought Snatch Steal back and they got banned again. And then I think it's back or something now. I don't know. Like, sometimes it's not the right time for a certain card. Sometimes things move on and it is the right time for a certain card. To me though, like, bringing these cards back and letting them just exist, I think you would be pleasantly surprised at how few cards in that ban list will actually make an impact. I know that there are these like fears of like when these cards were so powerful, or like, you know, here's why this thing was banned in 2000 and some year. But I guess I'm maybe just very open-minded about this sort of thing, or maybe my tolerance level is so high. But like, and this isn't to toot my own horn, maybe it sounds this way, I play Master Duel like ratings duels, okay? You have to get to Master Tier 1, which is already enough of a fucking slog on that godforsaken ladder. But you know who smashes their head against the wall and the keyboard every night and just gets there each season anyway? This guy. And I get in ratings duels, which there's no reward for, by the way. And I just play ratings duels against the psychopathic crackheads in Master Duel who play the broken shit, or who challenge themselves to play like the weird stuff and just try to like see how far they can push it. I've like seen everything under the sun, it feels like. Crazy FTKs, weird fringe game states. Like, I've faced, you know, this current like Fiendsmith, Azamina, Snake Eye, Castor, or whatever engine mess. So many times, it's all been like seared into my brain that you do it enough that you will realize a Pot of Greed being at 0 or 1 would not have made any difference. Like, I promise, like, none of it would have made a difference. Like, these decks are so strong now. Like, modern Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like, I would not care if a Pot of Greed was part of their strategy, because that had nothing to do ultimately with like how good or bad these decks are. They're obscenely powerful. I know a lot of people will hear that and just think whatever, he's talking out his ass. You just got to take my word for it. I really think that these cards just aren't that much of a problem. And if Konami would do more of these lists where they bring this stuff back, let people mauled for a few weeks. Oh my God, the world's coming down. And then let a couple more weeks pass and they slowly realize that these cards aren't going to do shit. Like, it does not matter.
Like, I know they asked us, so we're giving our opinions on it. And I 100% understand where you're coming from. I've known you too long not to. I just don't think the community can handle it.
And you know what the sad part is? I think you're right. The community would
explode. I've
right.
seen too many ban lists, rants, and explosions, and
the way
I've
people
seen
get
cards
nasty
get
about
thrown.
it. Yeah.
I've seen insults thrown around. This community could not handle just little trials of cards.
Yeah, they couldn't.
Like, because like me personally, they could do what they want. I don't play enough Yu-Gi-Oh for it to be a problem for me. But I've seen too much. I know I know ripping our hair out over this.
I know how people get, and it's like part of it's like the internet thing where it's like you have to like be just angry or like just the wars around it. And I think like there's an argument to be had that, well, maybe this stuff should matter more because like for the people who are traveling to these YCS events, they wouldn't want to get sacked by a random copy of some certain thing. I get that. I just think like the idea of trying these things out is worth considering.
Hey, and there could even be a caveat. What if we try these things out, but the trial cards are not like in tournament or something? I don't know.
Or let the card shops fucking decide. Like, hey, this is
no. We've seen where that leads.
Well, no. Hear me out. Konami's the one who decides what the trial thing is. So that's like let's say, okay, next month is April, and the current trial card that we're like doing for April that Konami has mandated is Graceful Charity. I'm just picking a random band card.
Okay.
So now at OTS tournaments at your card shop, if your community agrees that this week you want to do everything's the same as the consistent regular ban list except that Graceful Charity is at 1 instead of 0, your shop can do that.
Did you just say the phrase, if your community agrees? Yeah. We're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh!
But
Yu-Gi-Oh! Players don't agree. It's very rare. I think that would just
be like the best. That's the best hope I can think of for it.
Is like, I would vote for Graceful Charity if I think it would help my favorite deck. If it doesn't, then I'd vote against it.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Like, if enough people vote to do it 1 week, and you play it, and then like enough people have a bad experience, then it just won't happen the next week. Like, I don't know. I think that's as close as you can get, because if they just did a blanket thing where they're like, okay, Graceful Charity's back, and now there's a YCS this weekend, everybody's like, the stakes feel too high. It's a YCS, like you know, that's crazy.
What's the highest rarity Graceful Charity's in printed at? I think it's
like a secret.
Only the secret, but it'd
be
like funny
to see World or Joey's World or
YCS
something.
Price spikes on these like trial cards.
Yeah, that's what all I'm saying is like, I am interested in the idea of trying, and that's where I'm ending this question. So thanks for watching this week. It's been great. I didn't expect to end up getting this like tense about these topics.
And we went through a lot of them.
But you know,
sure
the
you
ban
guys
lists
have a lot to argue about.
I know that these ban lists, that's how it goes.
I'm likely getting cooked in the comments right now.
Okay, well, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Just a quick reminder that next week we will cover whatever gets shown at Digimon Con. So, yeah, that should be fun. Make sure that you join as a channel member, by the way.
Yep. Yeah. And remember, guys, if you want your questions read out loud, just go ahead and hit that link in the description. You can enter your question in. And, hey, you know, if your question's very long, maybe submit 2.
Yeah, you can submit as many as you want, although I feel like at this point we got to start doing, like, fewer questions per pod. These things go. Anyway, cool. That's been it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next week.
Pass turn.